givers, fish chips, peas, I think one of us carry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
A couple of weeks.
Ritz.
Couple of weeks
How
ago.
much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was it was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6 and of course it is Monday, the 18th of August, which happens to be my son's 21st birthday. So we'll say happy birthday to him. He won't be up yet, of course, you won't be seeing this, but never mind. We'll be seeing him later. There's lots to do this morning. Emma Wolf is here. Very good morning to you, Emma.
Morning.
It's all about D-Day at the White House, according to the Daily Mail. Starmer, Zelensky and EU leaders to meet Trump today, but will he listen to a single word they say? I think that's probably the question of the day, because they're all going over there en masse, aren't they, as if they're some kind of, you know, scary-looking gang of guys, you know. And there's really only a gang of 7. They're not the Magnificent 7, are they? Let's call them something else. The completely, utterly useless 7. We call them that. But Starmer, of course, can never miss an opportunity. And yesterday I thought to myself...
How desperate was he to get that invite?
I can't tell you if I'm going yet. Oh, suddenly he could tell us he was going. I presume he went last night. So Europe takes a stand is the way the Mirror calls it. Front page of the iPaper, Europe unites for Zelensky's peace mission in Washington. And The Guardian says UK and EU at Zelensky's side. I don't know, they're making out like the EU and all these European leaders are going to make any difference. Europe tells Trump, don't give in to Putin. Well, you know, Donald Trump's not going to pay attention to that, is he? Zelensky wants security guarantees before a deal, is the front page of the Times. We will be talking about all of this today, of course, but none of it will really happen probably until quite a lot later in the day, because obviously they're 5 hours behind. But we'll bring you all of it as it happens right here on Talk. Meanwhile, lots of other stories about migrants going on. There's a lot of weekend protests. We'll be bringing you news about that, some coverage of that as well. Also, Rachel Reeves back in the news. She's had to make an apology, a formal apology, because of the fact that she misled the public, the great British public. She got her own figures wrong in Parliament, as it turns out. We'll come on to that. Also, she's now having to go at bats and newts. She's basically going to say we don't need environmental protection for these creatures. If we want to build something, we're just going to build it. So it doesn't sound very socialist to me, that. I don't know about you. But also, migrant boats costing £350. You can get one for 350 quid. That's actually cheaper, probably, than getting the Eurostar. And you can load it up with another sort of 85 people. So what's the point of going on holiday? Just go and get one of these things. You make them in China, apparently. 8 pubs forced to shut every week. That's another story we're doing. Also, Hugh Edwards has still got the 200,000 quid that he was meant to give back to the BBC, and they still haven't got it off him. I've got a few ideas as to how they can try. But listen, this is Morning Glory. You know what to do. 0344 499 1000. It's the only place to hear common sense these days. Let's get it on. As if you didn't know that things are going from bad to worse in this country, it now says there's going to be a horse racing strike as well, because Rachel Reeves is, of course, trying to put a tax on horse racing. So next month, they're going to go on strike. All meetings axed for a day in protest at Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, she wants to increase that tax from 15% to 21%, which I think is the same as the online casino slots kind of thing.
Which is a massive error.
Which is a big error. And, you know, it's one of the kind of pleasures that people still have left in this world.
Right.
Apparently it's going to cost the industry, that single day is going to cost the industry, I think, £700,000.
Yeah.
They're sort of striking at Lingfield and places like that. It's a sort of big day for four of the kind of major meets. Yeah, I mean, you know, let's just attack everyone. They're so desperate for money. And as you say, it's because the Chancellor is economically illiterate.
Exactly.
She seems to go after the small targets and sort of completely ignore the big things that she needs to do. Plus, you know, look at pubs closing, look at all the other stupid decisions, idiotic, illiterate decisions that she's been making, which have actually ended up costing more.
Yeah, and every time you read anything, particularly at the weekends when they have a bit more time to get into things in depth, I mean, they're looking at literally anything they could, anything that moves, tax it. If we're not taxing it already, you know, let's put some more tax on it. If we are taxing it, let's change the tax and put the tax
well, except
up.
if it's foreign, then give it loads of money. If it's foreign and it moves, give it loads of money. But also this thing about it, it's a bit similar to allotments. You know, these small things that make people's lives worth living.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know. Angela Rayner says, let's cover them all over with concrete, except in her own constituency where she's campaigning for allotments.
I know.
It's a kind of nasty, vindictive, but also incompetent. Yeah, hypocritical.
And very hypocritical. Well, let's look at what she's been forced to apologise for and correct, right? That she has to correct a parliamentary record after bungling her figures when discussing unemployment and her flagship pension reforms. This is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, right? This is the most important job in finance in Britain, right? And she couldn't get it right. The Treasury has corrected Hansard, the official record of what MPs and peers say in Parliament, after errors by the Chancellor during several sessions. In one instance, Ms Reeves claimed that excuse me, the £425 billion local government pension scheme was managed by 96 different administering authorities, a figure she hoped to cut to 8 pools. It turns out that was the wrong number. There are actually 86 administering authorities with plans to take it down to 6 pools. So she doesn't even know her own policy. In a separate session, she told peers that Britain had 20% of people of working age who are economically inactive, and we have an unemployment rate of just over 4%. It turns out that was wrong. It's 4.7%, and the economically inactive number is 21%.
She should know that stuff.
So she should.
She really should.
If you're going to give specific figures, the specific figures have to be right.
It's all prepared for her. It should be right there in front of her.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't we know this? Don't we know that she wasn't even able to tell the truth on her own CV?
Well, that's just true.
About her background
She's not keen
experience.
on the truth, really, is she? I
No,
mean, that's
she's
part
not.
of the problem. Meanwhile, we've got all sorts of other stories knocking around on the migrant front. Migrant boats in the sun at £350. It's really, really cheap. You see the size of these things, where they can make, you know, tens of thousands of pounds with one trip, and they're only costing 350 quid.
So
a lot of people keep asking though, where do they go after they've arrived here? Do they get taken back to France? Do they get destroyed?
I would assume they get destroyed here. I don't know. But these are Chinese factories making these inflatable dinghies for selling them for 350 quid. They're available on places like Alibaba.
Yeah.
And they're available on the internet. They're being sold in France for people to cross over here.
Imagine some guy from Amazon turning up with a great big dinghy. I mean, I presume you have to inflate it yourself, do you? But it's still coming in a big box.
They're a nightmare. Have you tried inflating a paddling pool recently?
Oh, yeah. Not recently,
oh,
no.
My goodness.
Those days are behind me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't, if my 21-year-old wants a paddling pool...
Happy birthday to your 21-year-old.
If he wants a paddling pool, he blows it up himself.
Blows it up himself.
Right, let's have a look at some clips from the weekend. This is Rachel Reeves being awkward at the House of Lords committee last month.
At the same time, we also have a challenging economic inheritance with high levels of tax as a share of GDP, historic high levels of government debt, and then also economic growth that really for the last 15 years has been very poor by historical standards because of the weak productivity growth that we've experienced in that period of time.
If you imagine sitting on the other side of that table is Alan Sugar. You'd be like, you're fired.
You're fired.
I mean, you wouldn't give a job like that.
She's visibly
give
struggling.
any job to her, would you? She doesn't know any of the figures.
You know that feeling when you're not sure what you're going to say next, and you just keep saying, you know, as you yourself would know, and she's going, and then she stops.
She's kind of reading occasional facts, which she's not reading them in order.
But all she's really saying there is it's all the Tories' fault. So she keeps going back to, you know, because of the economic, what we've inherited, 15 years of stagnation. That's all she's saying.
I know.
And she looks like she's literally dying on stage.
Yeah. Because she is.
Yes, she is.
Because she's that incapable, just doesn't know what she's doing. And even with all of the help that she's got and all the teams of people at Treasury...
Yeah, they all provide it all. It's not as though they have to come up with this stuff.
No. I know, it's shocking, isn't it?
Really is
Absolutely
shocking.
ridiculous. Let's talk about migrants as well. Big protest this weekend over in Epping.
Britannia,
there was another
Bell Hotel, Epping.
the Bell Hotel and I think this week there's quite a big important case going before, because the local council have taken out an injunction against the Home Office and they want them to shut it down. That could go in their favour, in which case, you know, the government got a real problem. But let's have a look at what was going on at the Britannia Hotel. This was in Canary Wharf, of course, over the weekend. Again, they sent loads of police down, and at one point you can see them all kind of running towards the hotel to get between the demonstrators. There we go, between the demonstrators, and somebody pointed out on social media, you know, the Britannia Hotel's got better protection than the UK border. You know, because it's harder to get into the Britannia Hotel than it is to get in here. And once again, they were making kind of a fool of themselves, the police, moving people. There's a woman on a mobility scooter at one point being spoken to. They're trying to move her on. They're trying to move everybody out of the way. And at one point, they said they'd issued I think it was a Section 34. Or a Section 40 or some kind of dispersal order anyway. And the crowd were just sitting on the ground chanting, you can stick your Section 40 up, what's it, you know. And
we're not far right, but we're not far wrong. I was talking to Susan Hall, the lovely...
Yes, have we got a clip of that? Were you down there?
Yeah. No, and she said she was going down there to support the Pink Ladies.
Yeah.
That's what people are there for.
That's exactly right.
And then there are the police barrelling in there, you know. And who are they protecting? Migrants in the hotel.
Who are laughing at everybody out the window and taking pictures of them. I think we've got Susan Hall. Have a look.
Women all over the country are not feeling safe, and we need to let the government know there's a great swell of feeling out there where people do not want to be living next to people who we don't know who they are. They don't want to be walking the streets and having to have their husbands with them because they feel too frightened to walk along. And it's about time that people like me, this is my first demonstration ever, it's about time people like me get out on the streets and say to the government, do something about this, because it's now very, very serious.
It is now very, very serious. And out in Epping, at the Bell Hotel protest, Robert Jenrick turned up. I think Kemi Badenoch was there as well. She was there last week too. Funnily enough, the local Tory councillors aren't showing solidarity with the protesters. But everybody around the country is now seeing something like this in their particular area. In Havant, there's a piece in the Sun this morning where asylum seekers should be housed in town centres, according to senior Labour councillors. Migrants must be near shops, schools, GP surgeries and transport to integrate faster and combat racist rhetoric. They still haven't learned, have they, these Labour councillors? They're basically pushing this narrative that, you know, the migrants are all nice and the horrible locals are nasty, ghastly, you know, vile white supremacists. It's unbelievable.
Put them in town centres and watch the shoplifting rate go up. And I have friends in Norwich who've said that the shoplifting around the centre of Norwich, even in things like charity shops, is becoming, you know, really, really off-putting to normal people just going about their business.
Well, that's because, I mean, if you're going shopping, what you don't want is somebody in front of you just stealing everything.
Absolutely outrageous.
Right? There's a story in the Telegraph this morning. More serial shoplifters and thieves are walking free than ever before. Nearly 6 in 10 prolific thieves defined as having at least 15 convictions avoided prison last year.
Mike, there was a woman who had stolen from Tesco in great big trolleys. She had stolen more than £145,000 worth of goods.
Blimey.
This isn't someone taking something once or taking nappies for their baby or whatever. They sort of these are people
raisins or something.
These are people who are almost shoplifting to order. There was a woman who walked out of a high-end store with a £495 designer handbag, and that was her 316th previous conviction. I mean, she had all these previous convictions. These are wholesale shoplifting offences. These are a sort of small percentage of people, 10% of offenders who are repeatedly offending. This is the kind of level it's at. Meanwhile, we've seen so many stories recently. What are the police doing? Firstly, have someone on the door of your shop, the meet and greet idea. Give them a warm welcome. That will deter shoplifters. Iceland... No, it won't. And also, most shops can't afford to have an extra staff member standing at the door.
Right.
And also, decent shoppers like me, I don't want someone following me around. You know, it's not what we want.
No, and also
crack down on the shoplifting.
Exactly, even in the small, you know, what you would call the sort of metro versions of the big supermarkets. You know, even if they have a security guard, which some of them do. There's one not far from me.
Yeah.
But some of these gangs will come like 4 or 5 people.
Walk in and take what they want.
Walk in and take what they want.
Yeah.
And he's not going to take on 5 young, fit men, is he?
Why should he? He'll get stabbed.
Yeah.
And the other idea that Iceland came up with is this new £1 bonus for shoppers. So you and I, if we see someone shoplifting and we shop them, then we get a £1 credit on our...
wow.
Well, I don't have an Iceland
What are you going to
card,
spend that on?
But I mean, it's not our responsibility.
What can you go, sorry, we haven't got anything for £1, you know. Sorry.
But
it's
right,
just ridiculous,
the police need to crack down on the shoplifters.
Yeah.
And, you know, this meeting...
No, sorry, they're too busy cracking down on mothers and children outside hotels, making sure that they don't do any harm to the migrants.
Exactly.
That's where we are. Absolutely unbelievable. We've got lots more to do. It's coming up to 16 minutes past 6. We'll play you some Trump and Putin coming up because, of course, last Friday, all of that kicked off in Alaska after we'd finished this particular show. So we'll catch up with a bit of Trump and Putin. We'll talk some more about what's going on with the migrant war that's going on in this country as well. The Tories are not happy about it. This is Morning Glory. Back with Emma Wolf after this.
Boy, you, Angela Rayner, you personally voted against the grooming gang inquiry. You want dangers to young women in this country. He's not saying that, is he? He's talking a much more theoretical basis on the dangers to freedom of speech and what that creates in society. She's taken it personal. He's talking politics. Different things. According to current polling and all the rest of it, she's gone at the next election.
She's currently got a majority of 6,791, which is a relatively healthy majority, is it not?
Yeah, it was.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 19 minutes past 6. It's Monday the 18th of August. We are here. It's still practically dark, by the way. I mean, I know the weather isn't going to be so hot this week as it was last week, but the sun supposedly is coming out, so we await its arrival, because I'm looking out the window and I'm not seeing it. I don't know what's going on. Surely we haven't reached... Actually, over the weekend, I noticed that the leaves were beginning to fall off the trees, and it's not even the end of August yet.
It's practically winter, Mike.
Blimey. Anyway, we'll bring you more news on the weather. First of all, let's get a voice note from Wayne on Havant Council.
Good morning, Mr. Graham. It's Wayne from Birmingham. I'd just like to say thank you to you and your presenters for pointing out our useless council. All I can say is, Mike, we'll be even more vigilant. The flags will keep going up. Keep up the good work, Mr. Graham. Have a great day.
Wayne, thank you very much indeed. That's another story of the weekend, isn't it? All these flags being put up all over the country. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, you know, and nobody's reporting it. Yeah. We, of course, report it every single day. But, you know, if you were watching, you know, Sky News or BBC News at the weekend, you wouldn't even know that it was happening.
And what about these councils taking them all down? I think Tower Hamlets, is that near, that's your sort of...
Tower Hamlets is the sort of place you go and somebody will overtake you on a bike with a huge Palestinian flag flying. And when I say overtake you on a bike, of course that happens all the time in London because you're driving at about 4 miles an hour. Yeah. But yeah, a guy went past in a what looked like an Uber actually on Friday when I was leaving town with a flag literally the size of this room, Palestinian flag.
Oh yeah, we were down in Bethnal Green, which is the sort of Tower Hamlets area that we're talking about, and there were men driving past in cars with the flags sort of attached to the windows, you know, flying out of the windows, and very, very loud, like doing Palestinian music playing. It's actually quite frightening when they've got it, you know, when it's in your face.
Well, it is, because especially when you know that many of the people following around the general area are of a similar bent, if you like. But let's have a look at what's happening later on. The timings are that everything happens pretty much after 5 o'clock this afternoon, where you've got the European leaders, Volodymyr Zelensky, Keir Starmer, of course, will be there, Donald Trump as well. This is him on a productive meeting that he had with Vladimir Putin on Friday.
We had some good meetings over the years, right? Good productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's been a lot written over the weekend as well, because at the beginning there were multiple kind of, you know, lefties and general kind of, you know, anti-Trumpers saying he screwed it all up, you know, he's given the game away, he's given the house away, he'll give anything to Putin, he's been played by Putin.
Rolling out the red carpet.
Suddenly, by yesterday afternoon, people were saying, hang on a minute, he's actually not asking for a ceasefire anymore, he's asking for, you know, actual guarantees of security over the fullness of time. He doesn't want a war anymore. And so people are beginning to say that there is a possibility here of some kind of game-changing situation.
It's really hard on this one. I've gone back and forth, and what does one feel about it? I feel as though it's been slightly bungled. I feel as though Zelensky should have been there on Friday in Anchorage. That was the sort of first mistake. Look, Zelensky's under huge pressure. I'm sort of laughing at the idea of Starmer and how much he was scrabbling. We all know people that are desperate to get an invite to this sort of Z-list party or whatever, or this event or that event. But it just felt like that. They couldn't confirm. On Saturday, they couldn't. Number 10 couldn't confirm whether Starmer was going to be included. And he's desperate to be on the world stage. He's desperate to be Zelensky's buddy. He's desperate not to be in this country. He doesn't want to be in this country. Why would he? He's the Prime Minister.
Well, that was a very weird scene, wasn't it, last Friday when Zelensky turned up at Downing Street.
Oh, yeah.
And he was hugging, they were hugging each other. There's a picture on the front page, actually.
They were cuddling. It was a long, prolonged cuddle.
That is a weird picture for me.
I know, everybody just thought that kind of crossed the line between, you know, the manly handshake or even the handshake and the slap on the back, which is kind of what they do now. My father would never have done that. But anyway, it's more like a handshake and then a sort of going in for a pat.
Right.
But they were standing there cuddling.
Yeah.
They were body to body.
Holding each other.
Two men.
Literally holding each other.
Desperately clinging to each other.
Yeah.
It was very weird.
Very strange.
Very weird.
I mean, listen, there are times when, if I haven't seen a friend of mine for a long time, I give them a hug, you know, but you don't stand holding them. It was just kind of like...
But also, it's a friend.
Don't leave me. Don't go. Don't let me go. It's as if, you know, life will never be the same.
Two tiny little men, there we go, you know, clinging to each other.
Literally clinging to each other. Oh, my God. I love you.
It's the body-to-body embrace, the torso and all the way down the body. I think that's what it is. I think body language experts talk about, you know, how much contact there is.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's certainly not normal for business associates or indeed politicians
it's not professional.
To do that.
No, you would not have seen any previous politician
Imagine
doing
also if that was a woman, right? Or you did that in the office. Imagine if there was a guy, actually, I remember when I used to work at TalkSport years ago, there was a guy who used to go up to every woman that he would say hello to and give them a hug. And it was quite weird. And a lot of the women said to me, I really wish you wouldn't do that. You know. But, you know, there was no... And eventually somebody had to say to him, look, actually, that's a bit
not
too over-familiar.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate. I don't want to hug you. You know, we're work colleagues. In the same way that these guys are work colleagues. They're not bosom buddies. They're not lovers. They're not, you know, mates from tens and
allegedly
20, 30, 40 years ago.
No, it's very strange.
They're not brothers.
They're not family members.
They're not, you know.
No.
It's very strange.
So anyway, Starmer got his. Sorry.
No, I was going to. No, carry on.
Well, no, but I mean, just Starmer seemed so desperate to be included, and now he's finally can confirm that he's on his way out there, so he can leave the country. Hooray for him!
Unfortunately, I thought you were about to say he's on his way out. That's what we're all hoping for.
Well, he is, but he doesn't go.
No. Trump and Putin. This is also from Friday. Have a look at this.
Again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening.
Next time in Moscow.
They were very buddy-buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, this was when you started to feel, has Trump misstepped? Has he taken a misstep here? Because really, he did roll out the red card. I mean, I'm not a Trump attacker. I'm not a Trump apologist, but I don't generally attack him.
But what else is he going to do? He's trying to bring the guy to the table,
yeah,
right? So
I know.
A lot of people who don't like Trump are saying he should never have given him the red carpet treatment.
I know.
What's he going to do? Like slap him around the face? And
well,
say, I'm going to do you for war crimes?
Is this going to go on forever? We've had this going on for 3.5 years now.
Yeah.
What Trump wants is peace. He wants just to get a deal. And I find it, and I'm the same, I think, he just needs to, they just need, the killing needs to stop, the war needs to stop. But he and Putin were a sort of unpalatably kind of buddy-buddy there. When he said next time in Moscow, and he used English, and he doesn't normally talk in English at all.
No.
I think a lot of people feel really uncomfortable. I think, they made that, they had the meeting, Zelensky wasn't there. It's like when your parents are discussing you, it was like you're a child.
Yeah.
He's now turning up with his 7 or however many of it is, the coalition of the willing. They're all turning up at the White House. You remember the last time that Zelensky was at the White House, he was basically thrown out. They didn't even give him lunch.
No.
And Trump told him, come back when you're ready for peace.
Exactly right. But there was an interesting tweet put out last night by Harry Cole, and this was a sort of a notice that came out as a defence intelligence update, which is also part of the whole kind of messaging to Putin from the US. Basically, they're saying that based on Russia's average daily casualty rate in 2025 so far, as reported by Ukrainian General Staff, 4.4 more years of war would lead to approximately 1.9 million further Russian casualties killed and wounded. This is in addition to the already 1,060,000 casualties Russia has already likely sustained since launching the full-scale war. So they're kind of sending this message that they've worked out that if you want to carry on with this war, you're going to lose another 2 million soldiers, potentially. Which is quite a clever manoeuvre.
But what is Zelensky meant to do? He has put what his people have gone through over the last 3 years in terms of defending and not giving away their country, what they've gone through. Is he meant to now go to the White House and say, OK, I'll accept that? He can't. I just think he's in an impossible position.
Well, because he's also got a problem with his own government and his own people, because the people don't want to give any land away, but an awful lot of the land has already been captured, right? So the question is do we leave it as it is, right? Ukraine might not want to give up any land, but like all of these deals, in the end, the war only ends once the deal is done.
Yeah, it's a compromise.
And somebody has to do a deal. So if they can shave something off what Putin wants and give something to Zelensky that he currently doesn't have, then maybe they've got a deal.
Maybe.
That's surely
it's going to be fascinating, Mike, because the way they handle Trump is always key in this, isn't it? Is how he feels about his ego and his great deal that he's done with Putin. He just wants to get on with it.
Yeah, I think also if there's a financial incentive for Trump, then that's what he wants to see happening, because it's good for America. I mean, look, what he's managed to do already is get the European leaders to pay for American weapons to give to. It's all very well you want to give stuff to Ukraine. All right, then you pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because he doesn't want to pay for it anymore.
Why should he?
And that's absolutely
Why
right.
should the American people pay for Europe's conflict?
Absolutely. I think that is the key to all of it. But it all sort of kicks off this afternoon, and we'll see. We've got plenty of messages coming in. This from Elle in Staffordshire. Proof that Zelensky is weak, having to take a posse of losers with him to negotiate with Trump. I'm sure Trump is worried. Not. They are a bleeding laughingstock. How embarrassing. And Tony says President Trump will have a major bun fight with his naughty European children, stamping their feet and screaming. He should shout them down live on TV in the White House later. See, a lot of people don't even support Starmer going over there and don't even support the Europeans going over there.
It does feel like that. I'm glad that Elle put it like that. It does feel like that, this posse of losers. They could be 6, there could be 17 of them. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They look really weak. And the fact that they all have to go together, it's like you gang together and you go, right, we're going to go and talk to the headmaster. We're going to tell him what's what.
Yeah. It's like the kids from
Trump's
third form.
had his meeting with Putin. This is the deal.
Right.
You know, get on with it.
Exactly. And he's going to be asking them, no doubt, if they want to have a role in playing for peace,
And
then they've got to pay for it.
He's done more work for peace in the first, 6 months of his presidency than Obama did, or
Piers
Biden.
Morgan put out a really good tweet, actually, where he said, isn't it surprising to see all these people, exercised about Donald Trump and what he should have done with Putin, instead of praising him for at least getting him to a table.
Getting him to the table.
Because nobody else
Getting
has
him to
done
the
that.
White House.
Right.
Getting him to a position where he's going to talk about peace.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think the trouble is people are so negative about Donald Trump if they don't like him that they miss what he's doing.
Do they want it just to carry on and on and on? Because we know what Putin's capable of.
Of course.
No one likes him. It's not as though we're sort of, making
He's not
excuses
going
for
to stop
Putin.
fighting unless you give him some incentive
Look at the weekend.
to do so.
In the Donbass region, there was many more lives lost. So, I mean, this is what happens. Do they want that to carry on? Because we've already had over 3 years of this.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely ridiculous. It's coming up to 6:30. We'll bring you some more news. The BBC have called in the police, believe it or not. Apparently people have been doing cocaine on the Strictly set. That's sort of what they say. Also, we're going to talk about the Tory WhatsApp group, which shows that some Tory MPs still haven't quite got it on the migrant front. 0344 499 1000 631.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:32. I'm Mike Graham, with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Emma Wolf is here. Lots and lots of other stories to talk about this morning. An amazing one that we spotted over the weekend, actually. This is, again, migrant-related, and it's a judge who let a knife-wielding migrant stay in the UK. It turns out was on the board of a pro-asylum charity. Now, Robert Jenrick has discovered this, and the guy in question is a guy called Christian Quadjovi. Spent a total of 963 days behind bars in United Kingdom prisons since arriving in Britain at the age of 10. Right, a continual rap sheet, including drug dealing and sexual assault. This judge, called Fiona Beach, ruled that Mr. Christian Quadjovi was not a threat to the British public at a hearing last year. But tell us what she used to do.
Yeah, so she was an ex-director, asylum aide, and she represented migrants for free on behalf of the Bail for Immigration Detainees charity.
Just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Jenrick, Shadow Justice Secretary, of course, said her apparent conflict of interest undermines confidence in the courts. This is the latest example of an immigration judge with open borders views.
And even the government had to admit the decision was overturned after government lawyers claimed that her judgment was made against the weight of evidence.
Right.
I mean, and she's not the only judge, actually, who is involved in this kind of asylum
many
stuff.
Many of them are. There's clearly an agenda going on, isn't there? There's
and they are
question.
making decisions on who and who is not staying in the country, and who is not deported.
Yes.
This is why I think we have such... By the way, Mike, can we just mark it's totally separate? Well, it's not separate at all. It's in the 13 days since that ridiculous farce that we talked about, the returns agreement.
No, the one in, one out.
Yeah, one in, one out.
Don't
Do you
make
know
me
how
laugh.
many people have gone? Zero.
None.
Over 2,500 migrants have crossed since the returns agreement came into force.
Of course they have.
So that was a total farce.
So 2,000 plus people in, none out.
More than 2,500
2,500, okay.
But
so the official migrant tracker this morning reads 51,239. That probably doesn't include maybe Saturday or Sunday,
exactly,
which could be even more. And I said the other day it'll be 52,000 before we know it. Migrant numbers for 2025 now nearly 28,000.
It's crazy.
It is. Well, we keep asking the government, you know, these people that you've detained, how many have you detained and where are they?
Yeah.
Because we know from last week, the TikTok migrant, do you remember him?
Yeah.
He came in on Saturday and by Sunday afternoon he was in a hotel at Heathrow.
He was at a very nice hotel.
So he was not detained, he was not returned, and they're basically now walking away from this idea of returning people in any time other than as soon as possible or whenever it's, you know, feasible.
What is happening? What is happening with people just coming in? Why are they not taking action?
Because they don't know what to do with them. They've got nowhere to put them, right? We don't have any detention centres. You know, that ridiculous, you know, a crazy short little video they did, you know, of people coming into the country and seemingly being detained. They had 3 guys walking out of a minibus into a doorway and carrying, I'll tell you, this is interesting, carrying a blue plastic bag full of their stuff. Do you know what I saw yesterday, right? This is not far from my house. A guy walking down the road with one of those blue plastic bags. Yeah. And I thought, I wonder if he's a guy who's been detained and this is his stuff and he somehow escaped. I don't know. But it was exactly the same colour. Yeah. And you don't normally see that colour blue bag.
No. That is really, really kind of weird and quite creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, exactly. We saw that video, but again, it was like when they detained someone who was making a part for a boat or a dinghy or whatever. Yeah. What has actually happened? Have those three people, or have those people have they left the country? Yeah. And what about the rest of them that are coming in?
Yeah, I know. Absolutely incredible.
Meanwhile, Starmer leaves. He just leaves the country. He doesn't respond to what's been happening over the weekend, the protests.
No, I mean, I haven't really been checking Starmer's feed for that.
No, there's been a few of those pointless tweets.
There's a few of those pointless tweets about, you know, we will not let anybody come to this country who's not allowed to.
We are supporting British business. Oh, we're not, by the way.
No.
We will not let anyone come in. We're going to smash the gangs, but we won't bother, really.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous.
I know. Crazy. Let's have a look see if we can find what he's been saying. Keir Starmer, his most recent tweet. I will do what it takes to uphold the law and ensure fairness for the British people. If someone doesn't have the right to be in this country, we won't allow them to stay.
Action?
Really?
Where's the action?
Are you sure about that, Keir? Because it seems like there's an awful lot of them staying, and you don't seem to be doing anything about it.
There must be a way of asking who has left, who has been deported. Could we have this information? You know, I mean, and literally just demanding that information.
That would be nice. Let's get a voice note from Lee on the White House.
Lee from Chelmsford. So, they're all off to see the Supreme Leader today. I do hope they're all travelling on the same plane, otherwise Crazy Ed will have a meltdown. Safety in numbers, they believe. Well, he'll maul every single one of them if any of them step out of line. Just crack on, take what's on the table, and let's concentrate on what's going on in this country.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lee. I'll tell you what people don't want, and that's for Starmer to commit another few billion quid to whatever the war effort is with Zelensky. We haven't got any money. You know, Rachel Reeves has seen to that.
Oh, yeah, no,
the black hole is now 50 billion.
We never have money, but we have money for foreign aid, and we seem to have endless, bottomless billions for Ukraine, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
And that is not to, you know, disrespect anybody who supports the Ukrainian people and what they've been going through. But frankly, you know, if we're bankrupt, if we have to crack down on every single British person, if we all have to be taxed to the hilt and driven out, you know, no hospital treatment and no money for pensioners and all of that, then frankly, we need to stop wasting billions abroad.
We do, absolutely.
And we know that a lot of that money, a lot of foreign aid money is absolutely wasted. I mean, no one disputes that.
No one really knows where it goes. No. I mean, we've given billions and billions of pounds to Ukraine, and, you know, it hasn't done any good. So let's talk about the BBC. Police have confirmed they are investigating allegations of drug abuse relating to Strictly. This is after a Sun story of the weekend. It comes after Sun on Sunday revealed the BBC-led inquiry had contacted cops. On August the 12th, say the Metropolitan Police, we received an allegation about drug-related offences. We are assessing the information and further inquiries are taking place to establish whether there is evidence of a criminal offence. As I'm trying to do my best.
And yet the head honcho at the BBC has remained in place. Tim Davie has sailed through repeated scandal after scandal after scandal. It seems astonishing.
Have you seen the match of the day at the weekend, Wayne Rooney was on as a pundit. Everybody was moaning about how terrible he was. And Gary Lineker, who's pictured in the papers today, will be laughing, no doubt, because they lost 500,000 viewers.
They lost 500,000 viewers. They've got these 3 hopeless presenters.
Yeah.
They've got the 2 girls, haven't they? Gary Logan and... No, sorry, Kelly Cates.
Yeah.
Is it Gary Logan?
I think it might be Gary Logan. I didn't watch it. I haven't watched Match of the Day for so long.
I don't watch it at all.
The last time, in fact, I watched it was when they all went on strike, when Gary Lineker
that was funny, wasn't it?
That was the last time I watched it.
Yeah, and Ian
I got better things to do on a Saturday night.
Exactly. Anyway, the numbers are down with their all-star lineup.
Yeah.
So Gary Lineker will be laughing.
Another great BBC blunder. Meanwhile, the front page of The Sun has got an interesting story, just because I know there'll be a lot of men that will read this and go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Chris Robshaw, who's a big burly rugby player, right? He was on Strictly, I guess. I don't know if it was last year. He's been apparently stalked by some mad, crazed woman who's now being hunted by the police, who met him a couple of times and started threatening him with violence. And I mean, a lot of men have this problem, right? And they don't talk about it because they literally think it's too embarrassing. But an awful lot of men end up meeting women who go insane for some reason, and who then threaten them continually.
I have female friends who are, who are quite stalkerish towards men, and I always think, well, cool it there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I struggle to really, really care about what's going on at Strictly.
Yeah, but this is not so much a Strictly story as it is about a men and women story, because he called in the police after she threatened him with violence and spread false allegations about him and his opera singing wife Camilla Kerslake. The woman, who we are not naming, say The Sun, is understood to have left the country and is now on the National Police Wanted list.
Goodness me, she does sound like she sounds quite psychopathic.
But she'll be meeting other men over the course of the next few years, and if she's anonymous, if she remains anonymous, there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be in a lot of trouble.
And this situation would absolutely not be okay if the situation was reversed and it was a man, stalking and threatening a woman like that.
Right.
So no, it does seem extremely alarming.
She started calling companies that Chris and Camilla were working with to tell them these lies that she'd made up. She's intent on ruining their life together. Her other victims are said to have struggled professionally, financially and mentally. I mean, it's really quite disturbing.
This woman needs help.
Well, she needs to be arrested.
She needs to be arrested.
She needs to be charged, I think, is what she needs. Anyway, what about Hold Your Horses? Front page of The Star and page 4 of The Sun. Apparently, horse racing bosses are going on strike in protest at a looming betting tax. We spoke about this earlier.
Yeah.
Meetings at Carlisle, Uttoxeter, Kempton and Lingfield, scheduled for September the 10th, are going to be cancelled. Yeah,
and this is the first time the industry has ever done this, hasn't it? And it's, as we said, it's going to cost them £700,000 in terms of sort of lost earnings.
Yeah.
They're cancelling those 4 big events. And they're big events of the season.
There won't be any betting at betting shops. There won't be any betting on the day actually at the races. And the racing business is struggling as it is. I don't do it a lot, but I was invited to a meeting at Ascot last September, and it was lovely. But there was hardly anybody there.
Really?
Because it was sort of towards the end of September. Yeah. And we were fortunate enough to be in a box, and it was great fun. And the people that hosted us probably spent a lot of money, and I'm sure it was worth money. And we all spent money at the betting as well. But you look down at the finish line and there was no crowd.
I think that's the thing.
Because people have stopped going because they can't afford it.
We see the big days, don't we? We see, Ladies' Day at Royal Ascot and all of that kind of thing. But actually, day in, day out, those meets where it's a lot quieter, much quieter time of the season. It must be a real struggle for the industry.
Yeah,
and I think they feel that hike in taxes is just unfair.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Kitty.
So, with your tweet earlier about Kia flying somewhere else yet again, I just wondered if your wonderful team could do some kind of dashboard with a line going across showing us how many air miles each of the cabinet have flown.
Well, Kitty, that's a great idea, but we've already done that. I think we've had the Starboard World Tour. I don't know if it's been updated for this latest trip to Washington, D.C., but here you go. Keir Starmer's World Tour and all the different countries that he's been to. It's been very well put together. Akrotiri and Dekel, is that? I don't know. That was for Azerbaijan. Then he went there. Where did he go after that? Belgium. This is just in the first year that he's been in charge, right? Then he went to Brazil. What did he go there for? There's some kind of climate meeting. There were G7, I think. Cyprus went there. Then he went to Estonia. I'm pretty sure Norway's on the list somewhere. Where's the plane going? Hungary. That was when he got out of the car and nobody wanted to shake his hand. Remember that? That was good. Ireland. Can't remember what he went there for, to be sure. And where else? Let's go. Italy. Yeah, went to see Giorgia Meloni. And she sort of scowled, didn't she, when she was sitting next to him. Norway. There you go. I knew he went to Norway at some point. And then really far away, Samoa. Do you remember that time we went to Samoa, spent 56 hours in the air? Saudi Arabia. This is great. I mean, you know, talk about freebie Kia, United Arab Emirates. And then France, of course, to see his good mate Emmanuel Macron. Germany. Did you see Macron at the weekend, by the way, on that hoverboard? United States, he's been there a few times now, hasn't he? Been there at least 3 or 4 times. And Ukraine, of course, to have a little love-in with his mate. More hugging. This goes on and on. Poland. I mean, it's ridiculous. Thank you very much indeed. So there we are, our Never Hear Kia guide to travelling around the world for free. I wonder how much it's cost us on the taxpayer.
I'd like to know how much it's cost us,
Yeah.
what the point of, you know, 56 hours or something to Samoa. How long was he there for? What was the point of
He
that?
was there, I think, for 24 hours, because it was Commonwealth heads of government meeting, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it was, yeah.
Remember? And so Charles was
Chobham,
there.
what
King
they call
Charles,
it?
Chogham, yeah.
Yeah.
King Charles was there,
Yeah.
and he went out there, and that was when I think he gave away the Chagos Islands officially, and also then sort of started agreeing to possible reparations with a load of other Commonwealth countries.
Yeah, and also,
Then
can we
he
give you
flew back.
Chagos back and also pay you for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I'd like to know, but also the cost, and also the air miles and the carbon footprint of all that.
Yeah.
And Emmanuel Macron, as you say, pictured on his, well, it's a hydrofoil, which is similar to a surfboard, but uses a wing-like
I saw somebody on
structure.
one of those when I was in Dubai.
Yeah.
It does look amazing, because it's, I don't know how they do it, but it's some kind of, you know, electro-powered...
Yeah, there's a sort of wing. It uses a wing-like structure to
Yeah.
lift itself above the surface of the water.
Yeah.
It looks very hacky.
It was funny, actually, because I was sitting in this restaurant and there was this beautiful scene. This guy went past looking very cool. But then when he came back the other way, he was sitting on it, which doesn't look anything like as cool. He wasn't standing, you know, if you stand... Macron actually does look quite cool in
He
the
does
picture.
look quite cool. He looks very happy.
He looks happy.
He just looks like
He
a
looks
normal
quite fit.
40-year-old guy. Yeah.
He looks quite
I was
fit.
impressed. He doesn't look like someone that's married to a lady in her 70s
No.
and struggling politically,
Indeed.
emotionally, psychologically, who knows?
This one from, somebody doesn't give a name, Hurricane Erin, Category 5 with wind speeds up to 165 miles an hour, is barrelling up the North Atlantic Ocean as European leaders and Starmer vow to fly across the Atlantic to be with Zelensky in the US when he appears before Trump later.
That's true.
Now, that's interesting.
Yeah, I
can
forgot
fly
about
over,
Erin.
You can fly over hurricanes, though. I mean, that's not a problem.
You can,
necessarily.
yeah. So that Erin, I think, is hitting Florida and places
Yeah.
like that. It's going to hit Puerto Rico, or it's going to it's going to bother them.
Next couple of days.
Yeah, next few
Yeah.
days. But that would be a nice thought.
It would, wouldn't
Starmer
it?
getting a bit of turbulence.
Exactly. Sean in Gloucester says, every bloody day we're embarrassed on the world stage by these idiots in power. Rachel from Customer Complaints can't add up. Keith Starling can't tell the truth. Crazy bacon muncher Millie Pratt can't make any sense. And as for Rayner the hypocrite, do as I say, not as I do. They're achieving something like no one before. They're actually breaking this country and our spirit. I'm not sure about that. I think the country's spirit is actually rising and getting bigger and stronger, because every weekend there's more and more people coming out and realising that they want to fight for what is British, and they want to see the flags flying, and they want to actually get these migrants out of the hotels, and they want to have their voices heard. I've never seen anything like it, like I said.
I agree with you. I think it's a combination of the two, and I'm scared for the winter. I think it's going to be a very, very long, difficult winter for everybody.
Yeah.
I think the economy is just broken. The back. I mean, look at what about the pubs? 8 pubs closing a week in this country. These are the basics. These are people's livelihoods.
Yeah, that's
it's a
in the
local
sun, isn't
pub.
it?
Yeah, it's in the sun, and it's just employers can't keep running. The running costs of
It's
a cafe
really
or a
hard.
pub or whatever is really hard.
Yeah.
The staffing costs, the national insurance costs.
Yeah. 209 pubs shut in the first half of the year, which is incredible. That brings the total number of pubs calling a permanent last orders in the past 5 years to 2,283. The employer national insurance rise and increasing staff costs are responsible. So, i.e., Rachel Reeves has caused this.
Rachel Reeves has caused this. Their vindictive and kind of economically illiterate policies have caused this. And if there's one thing that Britain is known for still around the world, apart from the royal family, it is pubs. People come here and they go, oh, I'm in a great British pub.
Yeah.
And if pubs are closing, what hope do we have?
Exactly. Donald MacLeod, my good friend from Scotland, was here last week, and he was talking about a new study that's come out from the hospitality industry in Scotland. And they're talking about something like 75% of businesses in hospitality are either about to close or are considering closing because they just can't make any money.
Or they open up as a work-from-home hub or something. I see hotels are now offering their bedrooms as, well, asylum seeker accommodation or working-from-home rooms for people.
How's it working from home if you go to a hotel, though?
Exactly, it's working from hotels, this WFH thing. But I mean, it's just, okay, fine, we have to pivot, we have to be agile, we have to adapt. But, you know, hotels are hotels, pubs are pubs. The whole thing is just a kind of absolute nonsense because the country seems to be... So, yeah, I don't know. I agree with you about the British spirit. When you talk to people, they feel they want to fight for the country and be proud of their country, but we're sort of being overwhelmed by it all. So, you know,
it's not easy. I mean, talking of bizarre stories about working from home, this is a Labour council in Batterslaw, which I think is up in Yorkshire somewhere. They've got new plans to let staff work from holiday resorts, right? Basically, this is a Red Wall council, is under fire as it approves plans for employees to work from abroad for up to a month, right? They say that short-term walking abroad policy would support employees with family or personal ties abroad, i.e. if you come from somewhere else, you can go and work from that country because you might prefer it.
Once again,
For the local council.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And these are, as you say, this is local council. It's no wonder one can't get the phone answered when you try and ring up to, I don't know, argue about your council tax or something like that, or ask for your bins to be taken out.
There's some people are basking on the beach in Ghana, you know, going, yeah, sorry, I'll get back to you.
And there's nothing wrong. I mean, when I go on holiday, when you go on holiday, of course you're on your phone all the time, you're kind of working all the time, you're in touch all the time. But a local council...
I'm not, actually. I get to the point, I mean, first couple of days maybe I'm on Twitter, but after that I just go, no, not doing it.
Oh, well, I don't go on holiday. But local councils should not be paying employees to be working from abroad.
No.
Oh, but, you know, but if they have family in India or whatever, that's the kind of argument. They need to go and spend time. What, a month, a year?
Oh, yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
It
It's a
is
complete
ridiculous.
rip-off. Total rip-off. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 7. Nearly finished with the first hour of the show with Emma. But don't worry. We've got plenty of other stories to talk to you about, including a Tory WhatsApp war over migrant policy. This is Morning Glory. We're back after this.
The wider concern now, comparing this in history, is that that's 1938 all over again. You offer concessions to the bully, and it looks what it is appeasement, and then they simply continue doing it, and that leads eventually to more war. You say, how do you beat Russia? That is the big question that we've never really explored, because we've been so hesitant, so tentative about giving Ukraine the weapon systems they need.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:53. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Emma Wolf is here with us as well. Barry says, morning, Mike. Never hear Keir off on his travels again. The fool needs to protect Dover, not Donbass. I think that's right. Good morning, Mike, says Ed from Thurrock. Why can't Ukraine borrow money for their own use? Why does the UK have to borrow money and then give it to them? That's a very good point.
Very good point.
Because we have to borrow money all the time. Yeah. You know, we borrowed, I think, 20 billion in June. I haven't seen a figure for July yet, but I'm sure we'll see it soon. And it'll probably be not far off the same kind of amount, because we've been borrowing about 20 billion a month for the last several months. And then we give them 2 or 3 billion. Why are we borrowing
Why are we borrowing that?
Yeah.
Although if you ask Rachel Reeves, she'll probably say it was £20 or something, you know. Oh, no, sorry,
well,
20
what, if you ask Rachel Reeves anything, right, this is what you get in response. Have a look at this.
We also have a challenging economic inheritance with high levels of tax as a share of GDP, historic high levels of government debt, and then also economic growth that really for the last 15 years has been very poor by historical standards because of the weak productivity growth that we've experienced in that period of time.
Dear me. Morning, Mike, and greetings from the Arctic Ocean, says Linda. Currently en route from Iceland to Longyearbyen, the world's most northern town on the island of Svalbard. Looking forward to the sequel to Turnberry, in which Donald shows Keith who is in charge. What a fantastic text that is to have. I've never been to Svalbard.
It does sound very magical. What is this? Is this lady on a cruise?
Yeah, I guess
what does she do?
She must be, yeah. She's en route from Iceland to Longyearbyen.
Well, she's got good internet.
Sounds like it's in the Arctic. Well,
yeah.
This is the thing. You go anywhere in the world, right? You've got better internet than we got here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that is.
Absolutely.
I don't know why, but every single time I go abroad, the internet's perfect.
Absolutely.
And it could be in the middle of, one of the most
desolate
areas.
And here in London, centre of London, you get these sort of black spots.
I get a black spot as I go down to Sussex about every sort of 10 miles.
Ridiculous.
Where you just can't phone anybody, you can't, interact with anyone. James in West Ham, what a bloody farce. The clown show off to the White House. Notice all the ones going have lost the control and support of their own countries. This is comedy gold. Oh, I hope this gets televised. The statesman of the USA will show amateurs how it's done. Funnily enough, I was talking to some German people at the weekend, friends of the family, and they were saying that in Germany right now, they reckon if they had a vote to leave the European Union, they would win.
Yeah.
Because so many people are so cheesed off with the European Union.
I think the tide is really turning, isn't it, across Europe, actually.
And in France, the same.
Yeah.
They hate Macron. He's even more unpopular in France than Starmer is in Britain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to be proved right.
This coalition of the Willies, as I like to call them. What a waste of time.
Coalition of the Willies. That's absolutely brilliant.
There's a great one, a great
Apart
picture,
from
actually.
Ursula von der Leyen, who's going out there. And Georgia Maloney's going out. I'm a bit disappointed in Georgia Maloney going along with the...
I guess maybe she goes as a way of kind of counterbalancing them, because if you look at this picture here, Europeans step up for Zelensky. Look at that. It looks like Reservoir Dogs, sort of, the really,
Coalition of the Willies
sequel. Because they're not really that hard. And look at Starmer, he's got his hand on Zelensky again.
Of course,
right?
Just leave him alone.
One. Take your hands off him.
Just stop pawing at him.
It's touchy-feely, man.
It's just very, very weird.
Very odd.
I wonder if some will actually be included in the meetings, or whether he's just going along to fly along and... Well, they had a 2-hour telephone conversation. They had a meeting yesterday afternoon.
I know.
Do they really all need to fly out there?
No, I don't think they do.
It's very much these guys who, as you say, feeling weak in their own countries and want to be desperate to be on the world stage. I was at the White House for this big summit.
Right.
They've all cancelled their August holidays because this is peak time, really. But Italy and France and places, this is when everyone just goes off.
August, France is closed, isn't it? Yeah. I know, it's very weird. And I wonder whether he'll put pictures out this time of him and Trump. Because remember when he went up to Turnberry and he put no social media out because Trump completely humiliated him. Let's do this one in page 11 of The Sun. The Hunch Woke of Notre Dame. You'll like this. There's a new West End play about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, West End production. Ben Joyce, age 24, has been picked for the lead, but he's been criticised because he's not disabled, right? So now Equity, the Actors Union, is basically saying that you should only be able to play Quasimodo if you've got a hunchback and you're blind in one eye and deaf.
For goodness sake. How many people in the UK have a hunchback or have a curvature of the spine, which we should call, and are blind and deaf?
Not very many.
Sorry, one. No, not very many. How many people do you know?
Or who walk around going, the bells, the bells. I mean,
That's quite good,
Mike.
Not
bad. I could do it.
Yeah. Look, The Hunchback of Notre Dame has always been played by an actor with padding.
Lorne Chaney played it. I seem to remember the very old movie, the first one that was done. There is a real... Equity says this. This is a real and significant issue of casting a non-physically disabled performer in the role of a physically disabled character. Do you mean to tell me that this is how people speak English now? A non-physically disabled performer, meaning...
Non-physically able-bodied person?
Yeah.
Or... Yeah.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Mike,
how many people do you know with a hunchback?
None.
OK, I know one. My godmother for years, who has recently died. She was 90 when she died.
Okay.
She had curvature of the spine.
But that's
and is,
something that old ladies get, isn't
no,
it?
No. This was scoliosis proper.
Oh, was it?
From her youth. And it was astonishing. She was open about it, but it was astonishing to see.
Yeah.
She literally got to the point, when she died, she was at the point where her head was right down and she would try and put her neck up. The curvature was so severe that it crushed all her internal organs.
Oh, wow.
But a real hunchback is quite something to see.
Yeah.
I don't think there are many actors out there with a hunchback like the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
But of course, perversely, when you talk about making dwarfs play dwarfs, you know, do you remember they redid Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs without dwarfs?
Yeah.
So they actually started casting people who weren't dwarfs.
Which looked really bizarre
and all
as
the
well.
dwarfs were going, hang on, you put us out of work. Well, that's the only job we can get. Anyway, never mind. Listen, we've got lots more to do. Coming up to 7 o'clock, we'll be bringing you more, of course, later in the day about what's going on in the White House. Meanwhile, more from Emma Wolf. She's decided to stay with us. She loves us so
I'm not
much.
going.
Thank you very much. She won't leave. We'll see you after the news.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake? It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 7. It is Monday the 18th of August. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense. We are here until 10 o'clock, after which, of course, you can see a podcast of ours, Morning Glory. It goes out around about 10:15, 10:30 every single weekday. Kevin O'Sullivan's here in for Julie Hartley-Brewer all this week as well. So there'll be something for you to look forward to at 10 o'clock. That will be happening in about 3 hours from now. Just before that, Emma Wolf has very kindly agreed to stay on to have a look at a few other stories that we haven't yet covered yet, because we haven't yet got to all of them. But the big news, of course, on most of the front pages this morning has to do with what's happening in Washington later on today from about 5 o'clock. Europe tells Trump, don't give in to Putin, is what it says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. There's a whole panoply of European leaders heading over to Washington, D.C. To hang out with Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky as if it matters what they have to say. D-Day at the White House, says the Daily Mail front page. Starmer, Zelensky and EU leaders to meet Trump today, but will he listen to a single word they say? I think no, probably, is the answer to that. Europe takes a stand with a horrible picture on the front page of Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelensky in an embrace from last Friday. The message to Volodymyr Zelensky from Keir Starmer is, we've got your back. And really, it's only Monday. Don't get too excited. I don't know what to say about any of this, because, quite frankly, it is completely and utterly pointless, I think, for Keir Starmer to go out of the country when this country needs an awful lot of guidance, an awful lot of legislation, needs an awful lot of sorting out. Over the weekend, there was yet more demonstrations and protests outside multiple hotels which are housing migrants. We've got all sorts of pieces of footage to show you about that. Down in Canary Wharf, the police were out in force. Women were turning up just wearing pink. It's a Pink Lady protest. They were doing that in Norwich. They were doing it in Epping, outside the Bell Hotel. They were doing it where Robert Jenrick turned up and Kemi Badenoch turned up as well. The police, of course, being over-manned and really, really over-enthusiastic about trying to stop these people from demonstrating outside these hotels, where, frankly, there are things going on which we can only worry about. Here's some pictures of police running. Somebody pointed out to me at the weekend the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf is better protected than the UK borders. And that is absolutely and utterly true. Daily Express has got an interesting one. Britain's 10 million junk food addicts. Apparently there are 10 million people in this country addicted to junk food. And this is research that has been revealed saying that the World Health Organization should include food addiction as a form of substance abuse. I'm not sure we should go that far. Front page of The Sun has got a Strictly story. Apparently former England rugby player Chris Robshaw has called in the police after a terrifying campaign of harassment by a female stalker. He appeared on Strictly, and now she's after him for some reason. Lots more to tell you about. Shoplifters being spared prison in record numbers. We'll talk about Normal People author as well, Sally Rooney. She's going to fund Palestine Action. What an idiot. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Let's get a voice note from Glenn.
Morning, Mike. Glenn from Suffolk here. What do these idiot Labour councillors not understand? These immigrants don't want to integrate with us. We don't want to integrate with them. Who wants to be forced to integrate with anyone? It's like putting diesel in a petrol car. It just won't work. Sooner or later, it will break down. And that's what's going to happen to this country.
And I think that's right. I mean, this is a story that we've got. Emma, thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is a story from Havant Council, where the Sun has intervened into. They've got a hold of some emails being sent between Labour councillors who are basically saying, what we have to do in order to fight racism is to bring the migrants closer to the community. So put them where the shops are, put them where the schools are, put them where the communities are, and then they'll all integrate with each other.
Bring them into the town centres, give them plush sort of town centre accommodation, where other people who are working hard and paying their taxes are living further out and have to travel to get to school, to get to the hospitals, to get to wherever. So we're going to have town centres, sort of hotbeds of shoplifting and crime and potentially harassment and things like that, all of which people are reporting already. And it's such an interesting point you make. What if we saw these kind of police presence? What if we saw that kind of show of force down at the borders, which is what everybody is talking about, people coming into this country illegally and unchecked? What if we saw that kind of, show of force down there? Right. We don't. We see it being policed against British people, against ladies in pink at these local community protests. Yeah, and what we see as well down on the border, certainly at Dover and where these people are being brought in, they're being brought in and they're being sort of treated with kid gloves and they're being taken off into a room where they're given a cup of tea and no doubt something to eat, and then they're putting on a bus. They go to Manston, where they get processed, and then they go to a hotel. Yeah, they go to a hotel. And the whole process only takes about 24 hours. They go to a hotel, and then we know, and it may not all be true, but we see the list of things that legal and illegal migrants are given when they arrive in this country. And it's simply, you know, people are very, very angry about this.
They really are. And the bottom line is that in the end, Robert Jenrick says it shows, and he, as I say, was at the protest in Epping Forest yesterday, he says it shows that the nation has had enough. And the government has to acknowledge it. And still, despite this been going on now for pretty much the last month, Keir Starmer has not uttered a word about it.
There has been no proper response at all. Apart from the excessive policing on their own people, there's been no government response to what is going on around the country and what people are actually saying.
Exactly.
And Robert Jenrick's absolutely right. He's talking about the kind of the tide is turning and the feeling that, you know, the British people have had enough.
Right.
And I think he's absolutely right. And you were talking about the kind of British spirit and the fact that we may be kind of broken, but we're stronger in a way.
Well, we are, because in a way people are finally waking up to the fact that, you know, enough is enough. We've been watching this go on, and we've been reporting on it for a long time. Nobody else has, right? The other story that I think we should mention here is Operation Raise the Colours. This is a little patriotism campaign around the country where people are putting flags up and just saying, we want to fly a Union Jack, or we want to fly across the St George, you know, because it started in Birmingham, where Birmingham Council ordered the removal of hundreds of Union and St George's flags flying from street lampposts in the city, saying that they were a health and safety risk. And you go, really?
It's funny how some flags are a health and safety risk.
Well, I'll tell you what's
aren't.
a health and safety risk is when you haven't collected the rubbish for about 6 months.
Get on with your job.
And you've got rats the size of cats running around, and cats the size of donkeys soon running around. You know, they claim the flags put the lives of pedestrians and motorists at risks, despite being 25 feet off the ground.
No, for goodness sake.
Right.
Since when did flying your British flag as a British person, you know...
Then the same thing happened in Tower Hamlets in East London. We talked about it in the last hour. They said they would take down St George's flags as soon as possible after they were put up in recent days. This is the same borough council where in the beginning of the whole Israeli problem after October the 7th and that ghastly attack by Hamas. There were street parties, there were blockages of the road. They occupied the tunnel that goes underneath Canary Wharf, the Limehouse Link tunnel, for hours and hours on end, and these were Palestinian supporters waving Palestinian flags.
Well, there are Palestinian flags all over Tower Hamlets. There are. Which are not being removed.
Hanging out of windows, hanging out of
car doors,
balconies,
windows,
council houses, because they're all in council houses, of course. Don't worry about that. So, I mean, these are all things which matter to everyone who cares about this country. Keir Starmer cares so much about that he hasn't said anything, and instead he's gone off to America to play, you know, I'm an international statesman games.
It's absolutely ludicrous, and they're simply not responding. And the more you just ignore people, you know, the more it'll continue. And
absolutely.
He can keep putting out these ludicrous tweets about, you know, we are taking action, we are securing our borders, and they're not. And people aren't idiots.
People are not
because they're actually living their lives, and they see what's going on in their communities.
Exactly. A couple of stories as well about the migrant hotel protests and the border farce. Illegal migrants brought to the UK, as one in the Sun, in dangerous £350 dinghies, which are sold online by backstreet factories in China. The belief is they come in via sort of Turkey and then into places like Romania, into Eastern Europe, and then they find their way to the Channel crossing. And it surely can't be that difficult to stop it.
Well, as we were saying, they are for sale. They're being sold at places like Alibaba. They're being sold online openly. You or I could probably go and buy one. I think they're £350. They can carry, what is it, up to 100 people? I don't know how many people they can carry.
They're certainly getting 80 and more on.
But these are big structures. They're being, you know, this isn't just kind of pumping up a small tyre or something.
No.
They're big, they're heavy.
And also they're less and less risky as time goes on. You know, now occasionally there is a tragedy and some people drown because they get overloaded. But it happens very, very little, considering how many people actually make it across. As you've said to me, 2,500 people have come into this country that way on small boats ever since Keir Starmer announced the returns policy.
But he made such a big deal about...
nobody.
He made such a big deal about the returns agreement. We have secured a one-in, one-out, which we didn't want. But anyway, the returns agreement with France. Who has been returned? How many have been returned? Where have they gone?
None.
Let's see the proof. Who's been returned?
Well, I think Shabana Mahmood was asked the question a couple of days ago, can you please show us some video of people being returned? Because at the end of the day, that's all we need to see. And she couldn't do it. She said, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Or even the paperwork. Just just show us the official
no, they're
paperwork.
very good. They showed us that ridiculous video in slow motion of people.
Yeah, but I don't
walking.
want video. I don't want the footage of the guy holding his blue plastic bag walking somewhere.
Right.
I'm saying there must be official paperwork saying you've left, you've gone, you're on a docket, you're on a flight.
No,
well,
because they haven't sent anyone.
Because they haven't sent anyone. That's what I'm saying.
But I'll take a video of somebody being put on a flight.
But they're not going anywhere.
No, of course, because there aren't.
It's all made up. It's probably Starmer's friends.
Let's go back to the protests, and here's Susan Hall, the former leader of the Conservative Assembly members down in City Hall.
Women all over the country are not feeling safe, and we need to let the government know there's a great swell of feeling out there where people do not want to be living next to people who we don't know who they are. They don't want to be walking the streets and having to have their husbands with them because they feel too frightened to walk along. And it's about time that people like me, this is my first demonstration ever, it's about time people like me get out on the streets and say to the government, do something about this, because it's now very, very serious.
It is now very, very serious, and when somebody as serious as Susan Hall says it, you'd think. I mean, Sadiq Khan has spent an entire career ignoring her, so now Keir Starmer's ignoring her.
And being extremely rude
and
to
really
her.
rude, yeah.
Really,
and
really
now
offensive.
Keir Starmer's ignoring her.
He is. But when you look at someone like Susan Hall, an intelligent, kind, compassionate person, and all these women, ladies in pink, grandmothers, mothers, daughters. These are not, you can't brand these people far-right racists. It's just ridiculous. They're talking about their lives and their communities and how they're feeling when people are transplanted into their communities, into local hotels, and are out and about in their businesses, in their,
And also, other footage that we've seen at the weekend shows what's going on inside the hotels, where people like citizen journalists will sneak in, and what you'll see is all of this, sort of new furniture coming in, new beds being brought in, new bedding. They are literally being treated like kings, these people. They come into a new hotel, £400 a night in the Britannia in Canary Wharf, and they're being given very comfortable beds, very comfortable rooms, very comfortable situations, and then they're given food, they're given a car that they can spend money on. And it's great, isn't it?
And they're telling people back home, I'm afraid they're telling people back home, look, this is what we get. Look at this. You take photos like when you go on holiday, you take photos, send them to your friends.
Right.
They're WhatsApping their friends and saying, look at this. It is, Britain is now becoming a very, very welcoming place to enter illegally, to come and live here.
I know. Let's talk about two-tier Keir in another way, because The Sun have got a great piece today by Jack Elsom, who we'll talk to later on, as some political editor. He said the name two-tier has actually stuck to Keir Starmer, unfortunately for him, because that's what everybody can see and what everybody knows. Big row over the weekend. Again, it happened after we finished our show on Friday. Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor, you might remember him saying this not that long ago, last year.
We've got children and women using those trains, destroying the summer holidays. They are disgusting, nasty bastards, and we need to cut all their throats and get rid of them all.
Yes, he was up in court, of course, on Friday, and he was acquitted by the court, having been accused of all manner of bad things, but he walked free from court. He's still suspended. He was suspended by the Labour Party. He's a Labour councillor in London. That was him speaking at a sort of a far-left rally against a far-right audience. We need to cut their throats, all of them. They're nasty fascists. Those were his words, right? Now, Lucy Connolly, on the other hand, is still in prison, jailed for 31 months for a tweet in which she said, you can burn the bloody hotel down for all I care, right?
Yeah.
And somehow...
And then regretted it and deleted it and apologised, and she's in prison.
Yeah. And the problem is, right, people all weekend, particularly these kind of, legal types, were saying anyone who says this is two-tier justice is an idiot. They don't understand that she didn't have a jury trial because she pleaded guilty. He did have a jury trial, and so it's nothing to do with the judge. Well, up to a point, Lord Copper, is what I would say.
Exactly.
Because the reason that Lucy Connolly pleaded guilty was that she was told, if you plead guilty, you will be out much quicker than if you plead not guilty, which was coercion in my view, and I think it was bad advice, and it was deliberately given advice because whoever was her brief was probably told to do it by the CPS, right?
Yeah.
And instead, she's not been out. She has not been. She was never granted bail. Ricky Jones was granted bail after being held for a little while. He was held for a short time after the offence, but he was granted bail until his trial. So he's been walking around free, And now he's still walking around free.
It's kind of irrelevant, yeah, the obsession with, oh, but he was found, it was not guilty, he was acquitted by a jury.
Yeah.
Yes, we understand all that. The fact is, look at the severity of her sentence.
Yes.
Look at the severity of her sentence. That isn't explained by any of that.
No.
And look at the fact that she is still in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, that is completely
And she has never been allowed home.
Disproportionate.
Yeah, and she has never been allowed home to see her children or her husband, who are severely distraught by her imprisonment. And that even is granted to some much more serious criminals who are allowed, if you call it a right to a family life, they're allowed to go home and see their families. She hasn't been allowed to do that.
I can't even imagine what that does to a child, actually, of fairly young children being deprived of their mother for over a year.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous. And look at what Ricky Jones was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with throwing with throwing anyone in prison for this kind of stuff.
They are disgusting fascists, and we need to cut all their throats and get rid of them all.
Well, there you go.
And then he does that.
Exactly.
Right?
And if that's not inciting violence, if that's not two-tier policing or two-tier judiciary, then I don't know what is.
And he also, I mean, the charge that he faced was encouraging or assisting in the commission of an offence. I mean, it's hardly, it's not even inciting violence. And he was basically acquitted by a jury.
Yeah.
But the point is that when people say the cases are two very different things, yes, of course they are, because she pleaded guilty. But you have to look at the reason why she pleaded guilty and how she's been treated really ever since.
And look at what both people said and how they responded afterwards and how they were treated.
And also, most prisoners now in this country, they serve about 40% of the time that they're sentenced to, which by rights should mean that she would have been out long before 31 months, because 31 months was the sentence.
Well, we know that she was made an example of, wasn't she? She's being used to frighten everybody else, to terrify us all.
Yeah. And it's all part of this online safety act.
And for some people it has worked. Exactly.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. It's appalling. He's been a Dartford local councillor in Kent since 2019, but he's now basically an independent councillor, but he's still a councillor.
He's still a councillor.
Because he's been found innocent, right? He's also worked as an organiser for the Transport Salaried Staffs Association Union, the TSSA, so... I mean, he's a ghastly individual. In my view, he shouldn't be allowed to be a councillor because he's brought surely his job into disrepute, even if he is criminally not guilty.
Exactly. And
he's still guilty of, I would say, absolute misuse of his office.
Absolutely, and I think his words there are far more threatening than anything that Lucy Connolly tweeted or retweeted or commented.
Totally. Absolutely right. Adrian from Lincolnshire says, Mike, I'm ex-UK military. I know several colleagues who are military contractors in Ukraine on £2,000 paid per day by UK taxpayers. That's nice, isn't it?
Complete madness.
And Maggie says, haven't all these leaders heading to Washington to hold Zelensky's hand heard of Skype? So much for saying that saving the polar bears, or is it just that it's down to everyone else? One rule for them and one rule for the rest of us. Great show, Maggie says. Yeah, I know.
But Maggie, they've already had their big Skype Zoom discussion yesterday, whatever it was. They want the photo op. They want to stand with Zelensky. They want to hold his hand and get their photo to show their own countries. Yeah. They want to be there, don't they?
Just want to hold his hand.
It used to be called Star something.
Yeah, they did. Absolutely.
That kind of
it's like,
glamour.
My mate Volodymyr Zelensky, I can't let him go anywhere without me. It's just weird, isn't it? Very weird. Anyway, it's 7:21. Emma, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
Emma Wolf back, I'm sure, again, to talk to us all about many of the stories that are going on. A voice note here from Tony on the BBC.
Morning, Mike. Tony from North Somerset. I see you and I have been discussing the BBC story about Strictly Come Dancing and the powder keg, as we'll call it, story. Perhaps he should, once the investigation is done, rename the show Strictly Line Dancing. Keep up the good work.
Very good. I see what you did there, Tony, yeah. And apparently they've called in the police because they've discovered that somebody's been using cocaine inside the BBC studios, a bit like that scene from Casablanca. I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that there's gambling going on here in a casino. This is Talk.
Putin respects Donald Trump very much because Trump is hero. His behavior during attempt to kill him was, amazing. And Donald Trump challenged to the so-called deep state. Donald Trump, with 90% of mainstream media against him, nevertheless, he arrives and help American people to bring America a democracy. I'm very big proponent of democracy. I think democracy is solution of the many problems.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 25 minutes past 7. We're already an hour and a half into the show. It's unbelievable. It's a breaking day. It's a breaking day. It's a new week, is what I mean to say. But it's not looking very good. I'm looking out over the vista of the London skyline. It's looking a bit misty and a bit sort of gloomy and not very sunny at all, which is what it was like on Saturday. Anyway, listen, I got this from Barry, who says, "Good morning, Mike. I don't know what happened to the regular updates Yvette Cooper promised us. At the weekend, it was revealed that 2,500 migrants have crossed in boats since the one-in, one-out scheme was started." Yeah. ITV asked the Home Office to comment, and they were told, "We will not give a running commentary." Is that the regular update? You can bet if the numbers had gone down, they'd be making announcements by the gross. Great show, says Barry. And let's remind ourselves of what we were told by Yvette Cooper. This was over a week ago.
We'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Yeah, OK then. So that message came in on the 7th of August, by the way. It's now the 18th of August. By my reckoning, that's 11 days. The pilot started, but not the real pilot, because they haven't got the pilot for the airline actually flying anybody anywhere. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be happening. So, yes, they will not give us any regular updates, but they will not give us any operational situations either. So what's going on? Is anything going on? We haven't had an update for 11 days. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Come on, Yvette. Get your act together. You know, now that the cat's away, you know, two-tier Kia, never here, free gear is off. You could take to the stand in Downing Street and you could issue us with an update. It'd be nice to get at least one before the end of the month, wouldn't it? That would be regular, wouldn't it? Let's talk to Roxanne Hoge, who is the chair of the Republican Party in Los Angeles. But before that, let's have a listen to this voice note from Colin.
Morning, Mike. Colin here from County Durham. My question to all these leaders around the world that are going to America today, if they were in Zelensky's shoes, they do the same thing. Would they give up part of their land? Let's say Britain was invaded. Would they give up Wales? Or would they give up Scotland if we were being invaded and they knew there was no way going back? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't give up that land. They wouldn't just say, yeah, we'll just lie down and let you have it. Same with America. If Canada invaded America and let's say they took Alaska, would Trump give up Alaska? Would he, damn? Absolutely shocking.
Well, it depends. I think the problem with all of these settlements in wars is that generally somebody has to give up something. And if both sides give up something, that's generally where you get the peace. You know, it's the same situation in Gaza. You know, Gaza and Hamas want to see the wiping out and the eradication of Israel. They're not going to get that. Israel, certainly parts of the Israeli government, want to see the eradication of Gaza. And they're probably not going to get that. But somewhere in the middle is where they're going to end up. Let's find out from Roxanne what she thinks is going to happen. Roxanne, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Thanks very much for joining us. I mean, it's a tough one, this, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people have been very critical of Donald Trump over the weekend, but I mean, he's got this to the point where people are actually coming to a conversation, coming to a table to talk. So in my view, I think he's doing the right thing, isn't he?
He is absolutely doing the right thing. And no matter what he does, I noticed that they move the goalposts just a little bit further. Well, then he won't get them to talk well, but he won't get them to talk properly well.
Right.
Then he didn't get them to talk properly about the thing we want. Come on, give peace a chance, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Colin makes a good point. He says, you know, of course, if it was America who was being invaded, they wouldn't want to give up, you know, Nebraska, or they wouldn't want to give up Alaska. Similarly, Britain wouldn't want to do it. But it's not a question of whether you want to give up land. It's a question of whether you want to get peace. And if you can get it by some way, shape or form, sometimes you have to give something up.
Not to mention, it's an incredibly complicated situation there. We all know that, but it cannot hold. It is not sustainable, and real lives are being lost. And I think it's a real feather in the cap of Donald Trump, not only that Putin admitted that it wouldn't have happened if he had been president, but that there is some forward motion. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, let's see what Donald Trump had to say on Friday. He said it was a pretty productive meeting.
We had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do.
And similarly, I saw some defence intelligence information that came out over the weekend in which obviously the Americans are trying to convince the Russians that, you know, carrying on the war is a bad idea. And if they carried on fighting for another 4 years, they could possibly lose potentially in excess of another 1 million people.
It's a war is always a terrible thing. And I think what's really interesting is to see American media, and I'm sure you see it there too, not rooting for the end of war suddenly. That's not good.
No, it really isn't. And that's just surprising, isn't it, how many people sort of in the West, most of them anti-Trump, want to see the war continuing. I mean, we've got a lot of politicians in this country who I speak to on a regular basis who say, well, you know, if we don't stop Putin now, you know, next he'll be coming into Poland, or next he'll be coming into Latvia or Belarus or somewhere. You know, they really genuinely fear that Putin won't stop at Ukraine. But, you know, with Trump in charge, he might just do that.
Well, I saw someone on Twitter, X, had a very good point. All these European leaders and Zelensky, all very interested in Zelensky's border with Russia when they've thrown their doors, as you've been saying, wide open to migrants from all over the world and not maintaining their own sovereignty. So either borders matter or they don't.
Yes, exactly right. And what do the American public make of it? Because obviously we see the reaction of the media, but what about the people of America? What are they saying?
Well, as you know, I live in very deep blue Los Angeles, which is what we call an overwhelmingly progressive area.
Yeah.
And this weekend, I was asked to comment on a series of protests. And what were the protests about? Well, everything. Basically, they were mad at Trump for enforcing the border, for speaking to Putin, for, I mean, the list was sort of endless. It was just an all-purpose anti-Trump rally.
Right. And so those are not really necessarily representative of America, though, are they? I mean, they might be representative of California and Los Angeles, but that's not the whole of the country.
No, clearly more than half of the country agrees with the man, and that's why he's our president. The real break is often between rural and urban. And so California is the most urban state in the country, the least rural state in the country.
Yeah.
And when you have that situation, you'll find a lot of people saying, well, of course, he's terrible.
Right. But in terms of the war in Ukraine, I mean, my understanding would be that most Americans would not want to see more money being thrown at Ukraine. They wouldn't want to see necessarily any more help being given to Ukraine. They certainly wouldn't want to see American troops going in anywhere near that direction.
You're right, and speaking about the sane ones, but remember, the people who have now Palestinian flags in their bios, and then last week it was Mexican flags, only a couple months ago, everyone had a Ukrainian flag in their bio. So, as I said, the goalposts move all the time.
Yeah.
But the people who actually vote and do the work and pay the taxes in America, no, they do not want to see American boots on the ground.
No, exactly right. Roxanne Host, thank you very much indeed. Chair of the Republican Party in Los Angeles there, speaking to us from California. This from Nicola in Horsham. New listener here, she says, I love you and I love your show. I'm a shopping centre manager in an affluent area in Sussex, and shoplifting has been through the roof for 2 years now. We never see any police. Do this will never be sorted. On the subject of illegal immigrants, can we all remember just how tolerant we are? This has been going on for over 7 years. It's taken this time for protests to start. That's how tolerant we are. To see children being evicted and groups of foreign unknown men is heartbreaking. The first rule of government is to protect the British citizens, and they are failing miserably every day. Fantastic show. Please keep on speaking up for us. You're using the platform well. Nicola, I'm delighted to have you as a new listener. Thank you very much for messaging us. You can do the same, of course, on 87222. Let's go back to the White House, though, and find out what you all think of Keir Starmer going over there. Here's Matt.
Hi, Mike. Matt in Hove here. Just a quick note on the 7 EU idiots going over to see Donald Trump. I'm hearing that the White House have insisted that Zelensky wears a suit. So maybe Starmer can bring one of Lord Ali's spare suits that he gave him for Zelensky to wear. I can just imagine him now helping him put it on.
They're about the same size. I imagine it wouldn't take much tailoring either. Years. Coming up, we're going to speak about the NHS because we haven't talked about them for a while. It turns out that NHS are paying hospitals £33 for each patient being removed from the waiting lists, which is another way of conning the public into knowing why those waiting lists are supposedly getting shorter. We'll find out what that's all about. Dr. Tek Kong is going to join us. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:36. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10. Morning, Mike, says Emma. Everyone is complaining about Trump saying he's going to give Ukrainian land away, yet we are doing it with ours every day to migrants, and nobody seems to be doing anything about that. Very good point. Louise from Ipswich says, morning, Mike. Starmer, Macron and von der Leyen, etc. are irrelevant at today's meeting. If Trump and Putin agree an end to the war, what Zelensky wants is totally irrelevant as well. He will have to do as he's told. Yeah, I mean, it's all tricky stuff, this, you know, but at the end of the day, you've got to admire anyone like Donald Trump who's trying to get people around a table to try and sort the distant differences out instead of killing each other, you know, because whatever settlement is made, surely it's better than a war. Because if you were at war, would you want to continue going to war? Would you want to continue sending your sons to the front line and see them not coming home? Or would you rather say, look, let's call a halt to it. Whatever is going on, we must be able to find a solution, because that's what needs to be found at the end of the day, apart from the fact that we really can't afford anything different, can we? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Is it Alan Miller now? Alan Miller's here. Very good. I thought we were talking to Dr. Tek. Hey? It is the doctor. So my apologies. Dr. Tek Kong. They're deliberately trying to confuse me now because I'm easily confused. Dr. Tek, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I'm the handsomer version.
Listen, very good to see you. We've been talking about NHS waiting lists for a very long time here because this government continues to try and mislead the public by saying, one, we're inventing millions and millions of more appointments, which everybody knows is a crock of nonsense, because what they're doing is sending people appointments and then cancelling them and then claiming that we've made an appointment. Now it turns out, when they say that they've reduced the numbers on the waiting list, hospitals are being paid £33 for each patient they remove from a waiting list. So what's going on here?
Well, that's most egregious, isn't it? What sort of waiting list are we talking about? What conditions are being reduced off the waiting list? If we're talking about waiting for a coronary stent, we're potentially dealing with something that's life-threatening. If we're dealing with something like a knee replacement, we're actually prolonging people's misery. And, you know, to actually say to reduce that waiting list by with a £33 gift, I think is most corrupting. Now, what it is I've looked at this situation. If you have somebody who is waiting for, say, a coronary bypass operation, and you lock that person off the list by saying, we'll change your drug, we'll review the situation, that person then is placed in a risk situation where life could be threatened.
Yeah.
And if you look at something that's more benign, relatively, like a knee replacement, you're causing the patient further misery. Now, don't forget, you know, there are a lot of people whose employment depend on full mobility and good health. If you deny people that, I think it is most sinister, because not only will the person suffer, the country's economy will go down. And what's worse is we're paying taxes at very high rates, and we're not getting the service we're supposed to get.
Well, I hear from people literally every day. I mean, I haven't asked for them yet, but if I ask for stories today, I know I'll get loads more of people who have had an appointment cancelled, somebody who's been waiting 6 months to see a doctor, somebody who's been waiting 2 years to be given permission to get an operation or a procedure properly organised. You know, the whole system is in free fall. It doesn't really work. But what we're saying here is that apparently a former number 10 advisor on health to Rishi Sunak has highlighted data from the Dudley Group NHS Foundation Trust showing that it had removed more than 5,000 patients from the waiting lists. It doesn't say who they are or what they were waiting for, but that creates £165,000 worth of income for the health trust.
Exactly. Isn't it corrupting? Because if you're a waiting list patient, you'll be screaming like mad at them.
Yeah.
I think this is very, very disconcerting, because we are not getting the service we want. There's nothing to be proud about. We are making what is a sterling service into worse than third world offer.
That's the trouble. And, you know, you can't find most people are happy with their doctor's situation, or they're happy, or they've got a family member who's got a problem. Many people are going private, of course, which is removing a lot of names off the list, because even if they haven't got the money, they're finding the money because they just simply can't wait around anymore.
Mike, it is not just finding the money. You know, if they're not actually upgrading registrars to become senior registrars on the way to become consultants, we are going to have a dearth of consultants. So we are dumbing down the service. There'll be a loss of caliber. Already, there are many very able junior doctors in mid-rank leaving the country, so we're encountering a brain drain. That is not an acceptable situation. Now, they've done exactly the same to general practice, incentivizing doctors to the extent that they forget their professional ethos and patient advocacy. So I mentioned before in my previous interview with you that the professional ethos has been so distorted with financial incentives. What they forget is the health service is there, not for the politicians, not for the managers, but for the patients.
Yes. But the trouble is, the patients are made to feel very unwelcome in an awful lot of hospitals, and they're made to feel pretty unwelcome in an awful lot of GP surgeries, and they're kind of treated as if they're a bit of a nuisance. You know, and this all started during COVID, and it was kind of like, you know, we'd all be a lot better off if we didn't actually have any patients, and we just had hospitals that ran very smoothly. Nobody had to go into work, really. They could all take the day off and just sit there and collect money from the government. But unfortunately, you know, there are patients, and they do need help, and they need help quicker than they're getting it.
Absolutely right. That is what I call a tripartite compact. You know, the government taxing the people, paying the doctors, look after the patients. The whole system is collapsed. What we need to do is to put a party in that can sort the problem out properly. And I put forward this in the policy forum back in 2003, way back then, to Andrew Lansley, that we need to change track. We haven't. We've gone from bad to worse.
Yes. And in your view, Dr. Tech, is it because of the kind of intransigence of the system, the administrators, the managers, the people who kind of construct how the NHS works? That seems to be where the problem lies.
You're absolutely right, because the relationship between the patient and doctor needs to be brought back into the forefront.
Yeah.
We don't need the government to interfere. We need the profession to deal directly with the patients. There will be an infinite improvement in the quality and outcomes overnight.
It would be nice to see, but I fear we may not see it in our lifetimes. You never know. Dr. Kek Kong, very good to talk to you. Very nice to see you. 7:43. Let's get a voice note from Gary on the White House.
Hi Mike, it's Gary from Canterbury on a drive up to Leicester today for a 3.5 hour day. But anyway, I was having a think about Starmer, and the way he's traveling around everywhere. And, a lot of the companies that I deal with and a lot of the places I go, and I've worked it out, and I think we've got it. See, Starmer's like a Mr. Bean, okay? And what in business, it's a bit like, if you're feeling lonely, you call a meeting. And you can just imagine Starmer sitting at number 10 with his little brown bear, cuddling up, going, "Oh, bear, I need to hug you." And then he goes off and he goes to Zelensky and he goes to Macron. Anyway, great show, Mike. Speak to you later.
Yeah, have a good trip up to Leicester. Good luck making it 3.5 hours, by the way, because the M25 on a Monday morning, particularly going over the Dartford crossing, if that's the way you're going, is not going to be pleasant, I can tell you that. Ed from Liverpool says this, as with the rape gangs being called grooming gangs, shoplifters are actually looting gangs as they are so blatant. Shoplifters steal covertly. Great show. Yeah, interesting that. Simon says, good morning, Mike. Just 20 minutes in, and this particular show has made me more angry than they usually do. We've got Reeves talking absolute crap that makes no sense, a woman getting more police attention than people who are here illegally. Last time I checked, protesting isn't illegal, and Iceland offering us £1 for potentially being stabbed. In the words of Trump, they don't know what they're doing. This is Talk.
I had a conversation with someone in London sort of 2 days ago about this, one of those 10% that believe foreign sex offenders should not be deported. And she said that if you commit a crime in the UK, you should be punished in the UK. So that's their rationale, which is obviously ludicrous for a number of reasons. One of the main ones being that it costs around £50,000 per year per criminal to be in our prisons.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 7:48. We're here till 10 o'clock, of course. Kevin O'Sullivan in for Julie Hartley-Brewer all this week. We'll be talking to him just before 10 o'clock. Let's get a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby. So our Prime Minister's gone to America to invested European leaders to support President Zelensky. Well, do you know what, Mike? I want our Prime Minister to defend Dover, not the Donbass. Okay? And at the same time, while we get told, oh yeah, we all support and love Ukraine, we get told that we can't even fly our own flags in Birmingham, which is, as far as I'm aware, is England. Shocking. Whoever come up with that idea needs sacked. Great show, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely right. Got this from Jules, who says, morning, Mike. Starmer is so thin-skinned, he's forever bottling public appearances here for fear of heckling. And when he said country first, party second, it turns out he meant Ukraine. Well, yeah, I do wonder if that's true. We're going to speak to Alan Miller now, co-founder of the Together Declaration. Just before that, a couple of messages on Lucy Connolly. Bill in Cheshire on Lucy says, when this political prisoner is released, will she be able to tell the full story about the initial legal advice she was given and her treatment and punishment in prison compared with other prisoners? Good question. And Bella in Devizes says, I, for one, can't wait to hear what Lucy has to say when she's out. But I can say with certainty there is so much anger out there. And there really is. I mean, you can see it every weekend. I mean, as much as the protests are peaceful, and certainly the ladies in pink who are going out to stand in front of hotels like the Bell Hotel in Essex, in Epping, and the Britannia Hotel down on Canary Wharf in London. And elsewhere, I think in Norwich they were doing the same thing. There's no question that there is anger, but there's also a very sensible kind of calm about the way they're protesting as well. They're not allowing the police anywhere near the kind of opportunities that they would like, which is to crack a few heads because a few people get a bit out of hand. They made a few arrests yesterday, but the police way over the top in terms of how many of them there are. As somebody said this morning, it looks as if the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf is better protected than Britain is at its borders. Let's talk to Alan Miller about two-tier policing, two-tier justice, and the state we are in. Alan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I know you were out and about at the weekend. I think I saw you down in Hastings looking at some flags being flown. There's a great sense, is there not, around the country that people have had enough of what they've been putting up with?
I think it's really fantastic that people are putting flags up everywhere, particularly as Birmingham Council think that the Union flag should come down, but others should be proudly flown. It's insulting and disrespectful, but it's fantastic that people are flying them out, Mike. And I think that it's sort of symbolic and representative of the fact that on the first hand, many people, the silent majority, actually feel very proud still to be part of Britain and the history and the legacy and the virtues and the values of England and everything that comes with that, like the formal and informal constitution, rights, liberties, and the historic contribution to the world. And yet there's some people that just kind of continually want to put that down. There's a sense of disgust with history. We've been told it's all dead white males that are really bad and toxic and nothing ever's done. We've had that in our institutions, in education, and in many of the institutions that are running things, the obsession around DEI and other things that become very contorted. So I think that it's fantastic that they're going up much farther than they've been taken down, much quicker, sorry, than they've been taken down. But the bigger question for everyone right now is when it comes to issues like illegal migrants, borders, questions of resources, and people raise questions and they want to address those things, how come some people are treated in some ways and some in others? And that's really the essential question. Have we got policing without fear or favour? Do we have a fair judiciary? Or, as we've seen, in response to Southport, did we see a situation where the Prime Minister promised that people would be on remand? Did we see the Home Office call people criminals on their official post before all of them that was proven or not? These are things that are very big questions about creating a context and a backdrop. How are people treated when they're actually arrested? Is it without fear or favour? Is Lucy Connolly, was she treated in the same way as Ricky Jones? When Ricky Jones said that he would cut the throats and get rid of all these fascists and disgusting Nazis, you know, talking about a range of protesters. But that's quite lively language, Mike.
Well, it really is. Let's just not just lively language; it's pretty lively behaviour. Let's have a look at what he said when he said it.
We've got children and women using those trains, destroying the summer relatives. They are disgusting, nasty bastards, and we need to cut all their throats and get rid of them all.
even say, for all I care, somebody could cut their throat or they could have their throats cut. He said, we need to cut all their throats. You know, it's pretty obvious what he means.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm a free speech absolutist, and he's gone into a situation where there's a jury, and I think it's important that, we allow juries to make these decisions. Sure. But it's really, I mean, what he says is very disgusting. It's reprehensible. He does the motion with his hands, and he says we need to cut their throats. I mean, look, it's pretty obvious, but I think the key point with all of this is, Mike, that Lucy Connolly puts a post on social media, and she says, for all I care, as you say, and it's a nasty post, but she takes it down 4 hours later. Yeah. It's also in the backdrop of her own particular experience with children, because that elicited a response and a reaction. Yeah.
That should have been a mitigating circumstance, certainly. And also, the way that she was sort of, if you like, sort of pushed through the system. She was told, if you plead guilty, you will get a smaller sentence, you'll see your family sooner, and you might even get released on remand until the actual sentencing hearing and all of that. She was told a pack of lies, and that's why she did what she did. This guy was held very briefly, and then was allowed to plead not guilty, and then was allowed to wait for quite a few months before his trial, and then got himself a jury. You know, if he'd been given the same advice as Lucy Connolly, he probably would have pleaded guilty.
Well, that's exactly the point. So I want to say that there's a lot of the people that are in prison pleaded guilty in similar circumstances. Yeah. They were kind of railroaded, they were told certain things, and I really want to encourage everyone to know that, in these circumstances where things are very heated, that if you ever find yourself in that situation, well, firstly, I'd recommend that become part of the Free Speech Union, because they've got great representation. Yeah. But like some people who've got expensive lawyers who are able to get themselves represented, they pleaded not guilty. They didn't just take that, and they've demonstrated, Bernie Spofforth and others have shown that when you get 6 police come around your house, and it's terrifying, right? Most people have never been in a situation like that, understandably, certainly not for something they've said, right. But that you have to have cool head and hold the line. The problem is that a lot of people who found themselves in those circumstances, as you say, were told certain things. They'd never been in a police cell. Peter Lynch, grandfather, all of a sudden finds himself in these circumstances, and others for shouting at dogs and shouting at policemen or just writing things on social media. And we have many of them in prison. Peter Lynch very, very tragically took his own life in there. And there's a different set of circumstances with lawyers, people not being on remand immediately, and also the kind of context that was driven post Southport by the Prime Minister and the Home Office. Very different set of circumstances. But the thing is, it's very dangerous now, Mike, because if the public start believing increasingly that both the police and the judiciary are not treating people equally and fairly, that is a huge problem for Britain. And we need to make sure we get things back on track, because people keep talking about a tinderbox, but I don't like all those terms, and I think some people are encouraging that. I think what's been great about many of these recent protests is people have been calm and peaceful, local people, but asserting themselves robustly. But it's very dangerous, and we have to get back on track with policing without fear or favour, and not having a two-tier approach. It doesn't mean that just because people saw, for instance, at the Britannia Hotel on Sunday, the police responding with a Section 14 very robustly. Fine, if police are going to be robust about things, but these are peaceful demonstrators, right? I'm not sure why that happens there, but then other protests are treated completely differently. And so you see, the public sees all this, and it becomes very grating, and they know they're getting treated in a different way, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, as I say, you see the police like that in such large numbers. There was nothing really to fear from that crowd. There was no reason to think that they were going to invade the hotel or anything. Most of them are women and children who are simply showing their, unhappiness at what's actually going on. Because meanwhile, the people that are getting all the attention and getting all the money and getting all the free stuff are inside the hotel.
Yeah, and if you look back as well at the treatment of different people in different contexts across the board, I mean, there's really stark examples of people that were treated, like, for instance, during Black Lives Matters and some of those protests, and people that actually drop kicked policemen or stamped on people's heads and called them all sorts of things like white scum. Excuse me. They were treated differently. So the thing is that there needs to be it's really important we keep saying this, that there has to be true without fear or favour in policing. We need to have free speech. We need to be able to assert things, and we need to say things that are unpleasant. But it's also the case that, the hypocrisy is very dangerous. And that's why the Together Declaration, we're very passionate that we say to people should be able to have free speech. But we've seen it with kettling, we've seen it during anti-lockdown protests, that police were treating people differently, even at the same time, different types of protests. And it's really essential in Britain that we don't allow that to continue.
Sure. Alan, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Co-founder of the Together Declaration, Alan Miller there, speaking for all of us, I think, who want free speech to continue in this country, for people not to be arrested for things that they've said, unless they're, of course, inciting violence, a bit like Ricky Jones. He seems to have got away with it. Don't understand how that happened. 51,239 on the migrant tracker this morning. It's probably going to be peaking up to around 52, 53 by the middle of this week, no doubt. Mike, it's all right for Badenoch and Jenrick to join the protesters, says Jason in Worthing, but where have they been for the past 14 years? The two parties have colluded to keep immigration going, as they both don't want to stop it. And one here from someone who doesn't give a name. Friends who work at Cardiff Airport confirmed a military plane arrived in the middle of the night on Tuesday with Afghan refugees on board. The plane was a mess, all being housed at taxpayers' expense in a local hotel. Coming up, Isabel Oakeshott with the rest of the news today.
My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash, 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 smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Well, I'm sure the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer's on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. It is the 18th of August. It's Monday, start of yet another week, and it's a big start to the week because, of course, half of Europe and the delegation is off to Washington, D.C. To see Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. Keir Starmer belatedly added his name, so you've got a whole bunch of people. Emmanuel Macron's going over, the German Chancellor as well, Giorgia Meloni from Italy, and, of course, Ursula von der Leyen. She has to go as well. And Keir Starmer's going over as well just to hold everybody's hand. But what is the point of it all? Paul from Hartlepool says it'll be great if Trump sits and tells the coalition, the willing, that Zelensky has to give up the land that Putin has occupied for some time now, or he is pulling America's support and will inflict severe tariffs on them all, because there's no way Europe can financially support the Ukraine without him. This may end this war. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? And I think for those people who want to have a serious conversation about the state of the world, surely you don't want the war to continue, do you? And you might say, oh, I don't want to end it at any cost either. That's maybe fair, but how many more millions of people are going to die before it all gets sorted out? It seems to me that nobody from the European Union was sorting anything out. It seems to me that nobody from Europe was sorting anything out. They were just continuing to support Volodymyr Zelensky with money and weapons. And we have reached this state now after 3.5 years where something has to give, surely. Let's get a voice note from Karen on being far right.
Hi, Mike. I'm getting sick and tired of the rhetoric. Far right, far right, far right. Yet they can't name one group in this country that's far right. One political entity that's far right. What we have on our streets and in people that defend this Labour government are far left thugs, because that's what they are. And I'm getting sick and tired of the same old record. Far right, far right, far right. No, no, no. They're far left thugs. That's what we've got.
Karen, thanks very much indeed for that. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, what people will say in order to try and make a point. Serial shoplifters being spared prison in record numbers. It says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, nearly 6 in 10 prolific thieves defined as having at least 15 previous convictions avoided prison last year, and that's the highest proportion since the Ministry of Justice records began more than a decade ago. Just 41.3% received a custodial sentence for committing that many crimes. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We've got news that at the BBC they're searching for cocaine at Strictly Come Dancing. Apparently they're worried that they've called the police in to investigate. Also, Hugh Edwards is holding on to his £200,000 that he got, which he shouldn't have got, from the BBC. We've got loads of stories about demonstrations over the weekend, more migrants as well. The migrant tracker up above 51,000 now. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Oh, and by the way, 8 pubs have been forced to shut every single week, and Rachel Reeves has had to apologise for getting her own numbers wrong when she was delivering a speech to the House of Lords and to the House of Commons. Let's have a look at what she has to say for herself whenever she is being cross-checked.
At the same time, we also have a challenging economic inheritance with high levels of tax as a share of GDP, historic high levels of government debt, and then also economic growth that really for the last 15 years has been very poor by historical standards because of the weak productivity growth that we've experienced in that period of time.
Dear me. I mean, you literally wouldn't put her in charge of a Welk stand, would you? This from Jules in Aberdeen. Mike, last week I had to fly from Scotland and then drive from Gatwick up to Blackpool and back. I haven't done this for many years. What has happened to the standard of driving on England's motorways? I lost count of the amount of drivers sitting in the wrong lane, causing miles of congestion behind them. So frustrating, especially as the road infrastructure is creaking at the seams and barely coping. Where are the traffic police issuing fines for this? Anyway, I set all the preset radio channels on the rental car to talk radio, as usual. Well played. Jules, brilliant. Funnily enough, I was on a motorway just yesterday coming back from Sussex and was in M25, and there was a massive queue in the lane that was supposedly getting off to go on the A2 back into London, and I sort of don't like sitting in queues, so I was going up the second lane, waiting to see if I could nip in at a particular point. And it turned out, right, that there was a car broken down in the lane, right? And so everyone was queuing behind it without knowing that there was a car broken down the lane. And literally as I was coming in, a guy tries to pull out behind the car that was stopped, and then the guy in front of him also pulled out, and they both crashed into each other. And I was like, what a pair of absolute numpties as I just went round them and off onto the A2. I mean, the standard of driving in this country is appalling now. And if you drive for a living, as I'm sure many of you are currently doing, even as we speak, it is totally and utterly ridiculous. The standards have fallen hugely. And I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to say it. And I hope the Daily Express will not write a piece about me being forced to apologise, as what they did last week after I had a go at Rachel Reeves. I was not forced to apologise, and I never would be. But the idea that many of the reasons why the driving standards have fallen in this country has to be connected in some way to the number of people who are driving here from foreign countries, who don't know the rules of the road, who don't understand how to drive in this country, and whose last job driving, was escaping from some kind of, war-torn country. Anyway, let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International Editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
I'm going to totally back you up on that one. So if we have to apologise, we can apologise together, but we won't be doing that, will we?
No.
Because it's true. It's obviously true. And I'm sure there could be some more detailed research to be done on this journalistically. But we already know that migrants are being given driving lessons, don't we? Do you remember that story?
Yes, absolutely. Free driving lessons, free driving tests as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if you find out that amongst all the other stuff they're being given for free, a few of them might even be getting free cars, for all we know.
I don't think that's at all beyond the realms of possibility. Probably using the PIP scheme or something, whatever, Motability scheme.
Yeah.
It is. I had my brilliant researcher in a really tough part of Birmingham over the weekend. I was following up on this flag protest, which I'm going to talk about because I think the story is fascinating. And what is extraordinary is that if you go to even in some of the most downtrodden, tough parts of inner city places like Birmingham, you see these really very nice cars in the driveway. They're an awful lot shinier than mine is, I can tell you. And you just wonder how on earth all of this computes.
Right. Well, we know that 1 in 5 cars now, new cars sold in this country, are Motability cars. That's a big number. Whichever way you cut it. And we also know that there's quite a lot of migrants and people from born outside of the UK on benefits now.
Oh, yes, exactly. I think it's £1 billion a month on benefits to foreign nationals. And, I think we need to be very clear about what's happening to quite a lot of these benefit payments. They're actually being sent back to the countries of origin. And that is why, if you spend time in very, very heavily ethnic minority areas, particularly where demographics have changed very fast. So, for example, in my partner's constituency of Boston and Skegness in Boston, you find that streets are very, very dominated by businesses relating to money transfers. I mean, there's nothing new about this. I just sometimes think that our elites in their ivory towers in Islington and other parts of London don't actually understand this. If they actually go to some of these areas, they'll see just how much money is actually flooding out of the country. I'm not sure these are all well-gotten gains. I think quite a lot of them are ill-gotten gains, cash going out. And others is welfare payment.
No, there's absolutely no question. I mean, even years and years ago, when my children, my two youngest children were born, both in Scotland, it was when there was an awful lot of Polish people in the country because they'd been invited in. You remember Tony Blair said 15,000 Poles would come, and it was close to 1 million. There were people I remember in my kids' kindergarten class who were Polish, and they said, we're going home 6 months of the year, but we can still have our child benefits sent to Poland. Because again, the systems are so useless that they think they're doing a good thing, and I'm sure originally it was brought in as a measurement of goodness and of generosity. But we shouldn't be paying child benefits to people who don't live in Britain.
Of course we shouldn't, and all of that has absolutely got to go. But just to go back to the flag thing, which is fascinating, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have been following it. This row in Birmingham where the council decided to crack down on a kind of spontaneous display of Union flags and St George's flags, and began tearing them down, whilst at the same time refusing to take down Palestinian flags. So having gone up there, I mean, those Palestinian flags are still very much in evidence. You know, they are fluttering high across main shopping streets in certain wards of Birmingham. They are, you know, you can't do much about this, but they are in people's windows. They are prolific. And I looked at the law on this, and I'm not actually sure that Palestinian flags in public places hoisted on lampposts are legal, because the UK doesn't recognise Palestine as a country, and you can't just shove any old flag up.
Well, I seem to remember in the very early days of the post-October the 7th massacre in 2023, there was problems in Tower Hamlets in London, which is a very ethnically Asian place, really, around about sort of just short of Canary Wharf, and there were people putting up Palestine flags, and they were being taken down, not least by some of the white English residents who said you can't do that, you can't put those up there. But that seems to have changed, because Tower Hamlets started copying Birmingham and said that they would take down British flags if they were placed, and they would take them down straight away.
I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous, because British flags being hoisted is totally legal. Of course it is. And indeed, the government a few years ago, the then Tory government, said it wanted to encourage more British flags, and quite right too. And I think instead of seeing this as some kind of act of cultural aggression, our leaders should lean into it. You know, it's in a way a rather charming reaffirmation of who we are, and could actually bring the nation together in a rather nice way. You know, by deciding to confront this aggressively, councils are making it something that it doesn't need to be. You know, this is actually a kind of cri de coeur, a cry from the heart of British people who feel that our culture and our identity is under threat. And it's hard to imagine a more peaceful and rather sweet way of pushing back.
Absolutely, and I said this earlier on in the show, that there's a sense that we have rediscovered our patriotism and have rediscovered our nationality, and have decided that if this is the vehicle under which we discover it, then great. Then I think that's a really good thing, in the same way that we've rediscovered our kind of slight cussedness about being treated like idiots, you know, and people are turning up outside hotels up and down the country to make that point. Not to have fights with the police, not to be difficult, not to be nasty and ghastly, but just to stand there and say, we don't like this, we're not happy, we don't want these people living in our streets, in our neighbourhoods. You know, we've got Havant Council this morning being written about in The Sun, a load of Labour councillors passing emails to each other saying what we must do with these immigrants to beat racism is to make sure we house them in the community, near schools, near shops, near accessible facilities, so that they can integrate quicker. Well, that's completely and utterly mad, isn't it?
I mean, they just don't get it, do they? You can just rely on our leaders, it seems, and I don't mean just the ones at the very top, but the kind of idiots at council level, to misread this completely. They just don't seem to get it, and everything that they do actually backfires and is likely to increase tensions rather than to diffuse them. And I really feel that we're heading into a dark place here, because people are desperately searching for peaceful ways to make their feelings known. And the more those peaceful demonstrations are crushed, and I mean, for example, this flag movement, which seems to have been kind of taking off almost spontaneously, it's kind of grassroots thing, which seems to be going under some hashtag raise the colours, something like that. I don't know who is ultimately behind it. But if authorities start crushing that, and even at the same time allowing Palestinian and other foreign flags to fly, people are just their tempers are going to boil over.
Well, this is what happened in Birmingham, wasn't it? When I think there was a couple of surrounding areas as well, and up in the north of England, where they were raising the Pakistan flag officially on council chambers, saying, you know, that they wanted to celebrate Pakistan Independence Day. You're kind of going, well, that's fine. Do they celebrate, you know, St George's Day in Karachi? I very much doubt it.
No, they don't. They don't. So this is all spiraling, I feel, and I just don't know how it's going to play out. But what I do know is that people are yearning for some way to reassert who we are and what we stand for in a really positive way.
Yeah.
And unless the leaders of the country begin to recognise that and help people do it, they're going to feel ever more misunderstood and unheard. And it's like when you've got teenagers and toddlers that don't think they're being listened to, they tend to lash out.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at what Keir Starmer has to say about reclaiming the flag.
We should always fight for our flag. It's our flag, it's our history, our heritage, it's our values. So we should always fight for that flag. I recognise that people want to see a country that's secure in all aspects, secure borders, secure economy, and secure in terms of people's health and opportunities. That is part and parcel of what we are as a country. But there is this battle for the flag. There are some people who want to use it, cause conflict, to use it as it was used in some of the riots last year. I don't think we should give up on our flag. We should reclaim it. It belongs not to me as Prime Minister, not to the government, not to the Labour Party, not to any political party. It belongs to all of us, and we should be proud of it.
Yeah, I wish I thought I knew what he meant by that, but I don't really.
No. He started off quite well, didn't he?
Yeah.
He started off, and then as he rambled on, it just went downhill. He started prattling on about it being used by didn't actually use the words, but by the far right.
Yeah.
And we know what he meant.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you don't need permission, by the way, to fly a rainbow flag. You don't need permission from your council to fly an NHS flag.
No.
You, in theory, should take permission to fly a Palestinian one.
No, I know, absolutely ridiculous. I was driving in Tower Hamlets, funny enough, just the other day, and a car went past me. I think it was an Uber, and it had the biggest Palestinian flag you've ever seen flying off the back of it. It was ridiculous. I mean, it's just completely insane. I just thought, what's going on?
Mike, I'm looking into getting a flagpole. This is why I was actually looking at the law on this. Do you need planning permission for a flagpole?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that you don't, as long as it is lower than 4.6 metres. So there you go.
There you go. Excellent. I'll put one on the roof. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor there. Of course, we will be talking later about the international nature of Keir Starmer's trip over to America, because that's what he's doing. But let's get a voice note from Matt.
Morning, Mike. Matt here in Swindon. Great show as usual. Why is it in America, every government building, every school displays the Stars and Stripes? Should that not happen in this country? If it's a government building, i.e. a council offices in a town or a school, why should it not have the Union Jack proudly flying above it?
Very good point. And I'll tell you, it's more than that in America. Most houses in America, I'm not talking about high-rise buildings in Manhattan and that kind of thing, but most houses in America will have an American flag flying outside them, because that's how Americans feel about their country, and that's how they feel about their flag. And not one person in their right mind in any local authority would go around telling people to take the flag down. They'd probably get shot. It's 8:21.
have to make the point that Birmingham was once a much admired city by the rest of the world for its gold standard local governance, and groundbreaking industrial development. You could even describe it as a jewel in the Industrial Revolution crown. And I think to see it on the road to ruins, largely because it has an incredibly incompetent city council, I think is a crying shame.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:24. Mark in Selby says, Mike, what I'd like to see is the police outside these migrant hotels to, as one, turn around from facing the pink ladies and face the migrants in the hotels instead. That's where the true threat to British people lies, after all. Interesting point. Let's get a voice note from Judith on Ukraine.
Good morning, it's Judy from Altos, West Yorkshire. Everybody seems to be knocking Trump because he's negotiating for peace and they may have to give some land away, Ukraine. But just think about it. If it had been Starmer negotiating, he'd have given him everything. He'd give this country away if we were invaded and had £100 billion as well just for a sweetener. Gee.
It is amazing, isn't it? Judith puts perspective on it. Of course, absolutely right. We'll be bringing you all the news from Washington when it all kicks off later this afternoon, around about 5 o'clock. But a lot of people asking the question, what is Keir Starmer doing there? Let's ask Jack Elson, political editor at The Sun. His column appears every Monday, and he's got the two-tier Keir namer stuck solid. So, Prime Minister, restore British fairness. Jack, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I mean, it was a bit sort of late to the party, wasn't he, Keir Starmer, about shipping himself off to the United States of America? But he's going as part of this kind of. They're being called the Bash Street Kids by some of my listeners this morning. They're all going out to sort of try and see if they can get anywhere with the headmaster.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, a gaggle of European leaders are going out there to flank President Zelensky at his pretty high-stakes meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office later this afternoon. Obviously, last time the two met in the White House, it went incredibly badly, that screaming match in the Oval Office. And so I do think that these European leaders are somewhat human shields for President Zelensky in all of this. But also, I think more importantly than that, will try and bend the ear of President Trump to extract as many assurances from him as possible ahead of that much touted second meeting between him, Zelensky, and Putin. Because at the end of the day, Trump comes from a business background, and the art of good business is being a good middleman. And I think that Trump sees himself as the ultimate middleman in this European conflict. He doesn't really seem to be picking a side as such. He obviously rolled out the red carpet for President Putin, and overnight has said that Zelensky could end the war immediately if he wanted to.
Yeah.
I think it's good the fact that he has said, or Steve Witkoff, his envoy, has said that the US is prepared to give Article 5 style assurances to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire. But at the moment, it seems we are a long way off that. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens today.
Yeah, exactly right. And meanwhile, of course, what goes on at home continues to go on. Lots and lots of protests over the weekend. Still no word from Keir Starmer or the Prime Minister's office about that, really. Still no updates from Yvette Cooper. It's been 11 days now since she said she'd give us regular updates on the people who are being detained and returned in the one-in, one-out scheme. Nothing much is happening there. We know, I think, 2,500 people have come since they announced that scheme. People are still annoyed about the migrant situation. They're also now getting annoyed about the flag situation. There's a lot of stuff going on, domestically, as you point out, that if he's going to restore British fairness, then he's going to have to get on with it, isn't he?
Yeah, well, this is what I try and explore in the column, really, because I don't think that any nickname has stuck quite as solidly. And Keir Starmer's had a few in the 13 months he's been in power, but nothing has really stuck like two-tier Keir. In fact, I actually think that, it's probably one of the most rigidly stuck nicknames of modern times. Maybe Margaret Thatcher Milk Snatcher might rival that, and she managed to shake that off, obviously. And so, Keir is hoping that he can do the same.
Right.
But this idea that really sort of morphed out of the Southport riots, where it was felt that a certain kind of protester was being treated more unfairly than others, I think has now stretched beyond that, and it is essentially a byword for the unfairness that people see all around them in British society. So, as I point out in the piece, there are British families struggling to pay their rent, make ends meet, and they see small boat migrants coming across the channel, skipping the queue, and then getting free bed and board, free housing, lots of perks. Many people that listen to this show, get up the crack of dawn in the morning, set their alarm clocks, and see an ever-growing welfare list. More people signing on with zero requirements to look for work. People being squeezed for more and more taxes, but not seeing anything to show for it. And then you get the farce, as we saw last week, of St George's flags, Union Jacks, being torn down by a council, while other flags are allowed to stay up. And I just think that people feel at the moment that they're being taken for a bit of a ride, and that's really dangerous for Keir Starmer politically, because we have in this country a pretty unique sense of fairness. We're a country that quite likes law and order. We're a country that loathes injustice and unfairness. And if we feel, and rightly or wrongly, because the Prime Minister isn't in charge of all sentencing decisions, obviously, or for any sentencing decisions, but it is Parliament that makes our laws. But if people feel that the British state is not on their side a lot of the time, then it will be Keir Starmer that pays the price politically, and I think that is what he is currently in danger of doing.
Yeah, exactly right. And indeed, as you point out, in the Sun leader column this morning, at Havant Council, they've decided to send emails between the Labour councillors themselves to basically encourage, and again, not to share this information, but to encourage the council to put migrants closer to communities, closer to schools, closer to shops, so that they can better integrate. It's almost as though they don't get the feelings of the people.
No, totally. Fantastic revelations by my colleague Martina Bett, who obtained some of these leaked emails sent by the cabinet lead for communities in Havant Council, a Labour-run council, in which she says to the fellow councillors that migrants, asylum seekers, have to be put in the heart of communities so they can integrate, so they're near to shops and amenities, and in no way are they allowed to be put in the countryside or, on sort of barges like the Bibby Stockholm, because they want them slap bang in the middle of town centres. Now, that is the complete opposite of what most people in this country want, I think. And listen, integration as a whole is obviously fantastic, but I think that there is now...
But it's not really happening in a lot of places, is it?
Well, totally, and that is, and integration is not just having, somewhere like some communities where it seems to be totally disintegrated. But listen, I think that obviously at the moment there is a big fear that the small boat crisis is becoming a bit of a safety and security crisis. That is why you see disproportionate amounts of women and girls out protesting on the streets. And I think that the idea of putting in many males, young males who do not know who they are, they haven't been security vetted. We see day after day in the news cases of arrests and charging decisions by some of them because they have attacked people. Obviously, it's not all of them by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that, especially then to keep this information from the public and secret emails, I do think it's beyond the pale, and many people will be incredibly angry about it.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you also write this morning about the rather ludicrous attack ad that went out over the weekend from Labour about Nigel Farage. I haven't seen his response to it yet, actually. I don't know if he's made one. But basically, his people, certainly Reform, are saying this is kind of playground politics, the lowest of the low, etc. And in the end, it will probably be retaliated.
Well, this is the thing. Negative campaigning is always a feature of British politics, and sometimes actually, it can pay dividends politically because it is so. It does often go viral on social media. You might remember when Keir Starmer accused Rishi Sunak of being happy that paedophiles were out in our street, and he got something like 10 million views on Twitter. But obviously, it can spectacularly backfire. And I suspect that's what's going to happen here, because there's not much that really sticks to Nigel Farage. People seem to have made their mind up about him, whether you like him or not. He's a bit like Boris Johnson in the sense that, he's not perfect. He's not sort of, a slick operator. He doesn't pretend to be, exactly. People either like that or they don't like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost priced in. However, I do think that Keir Starmer, who, let's be honest, remember when there were attacks against him by Boris Johnson over the sort of Jimmy Savile prosecution, got incredibly incensed about that and said that it was beyond the realms of genuine political debate. Well, if Keir Starmer is now deciding to sort of, descend into the gutter himself and say that Nigel Farage will put women and girls' safety at risk, then I don't think that he can be aggrieved at all if he gets knocked back twice as hard. And, Reform and Nigel Farage aren't ones to pull their punches. And so, maybe in the coming weeks and months and years until the next election, we might see a bit more of a sort of a brutal blood sport in politics.
Yeah, absolutely right. Jack, great to see you. Great column as ever, every Monday. Jack in the Sun. You can find him on page 10. We'll see you very soon. Please get us there. Two-tier Keir's name is stuck solid. But let's see what's going on the Sun letters page today.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And they're quite worked up about this Nigel Farage row. It says here, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner says reforms Nigel Farage risk failing women with plans to scrap the Online Safety Act, says Sandra in Norfolk. That's a joke, considering how Sir Keir Starmer and his party are letting in illegal migrants who could be rapists or murderers. And Pete in Northant says this, Technology Secretary Peter Kyle claims women will be at risk if Farage rips up the Online Safety Act, yet Labour lets migrants into the UK while knowing nothing about them. Equally a good point. And Bert in Kent, Ramsgate, are potential rapists and killers coming to the UK illegally not a bigger risk than reforms plans to axe the Online Safety Act? Probably. I would say so. Coming up, Connie Shaw joins us. We're going to find out about more police Orwellian powers that have been used to gag a firefighter in a free speech round. Rupert Bell joins us as well, talks royal correspondent. We might ask him a bit about the horse racing strike too. It's 8:34.
'Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
$8.35, very nearly $8.36 actually. Good morning. Eventually, says Paul in York, when we are full to capacity and bankrupt, something will have to be done to stop illegal immigration. Why can't it be done now? And Tom says, Mike, just driving to work this morning to York, and I've noticed it's similar to what's happening in Birmingham. Someone's put a lot of English flags across all the lamps on the A1079 on the way into York. Brilliant show. Thank you. One neighbour, says Barry, flies the Union flag. Good for him. However, it's upside down. Should I tell him? Probably not. You know, some people do like a bit of pedantry, but I would just imagine that he probably wouldn't enjoy being told that he's flying it upside down. Doesn't really count. One from Treacle in Bridgend. Morning, Mike. My hubby's a taxi driver in Wales and the driving standards are dire. Everybody gets cut up or stuck behind a plonker doing 20 in a 40 zone. Motorways are the worst, where people are in the middle lane and others undertaking through exasperation. I would not want to drive for a living, that's for sure. And yes, many you see causing this are foreign. Please say hello to my hubby Alex as he listens every day. You're the only thing that keeps him sane. Well done, Alex. Keep up the good work and try and stay out of the way of people who don't know how to drive. Let's get a voice note from Andy on Missy Connolly.
Hi, morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth. Do you know what? Every time you bring up Lucy Connolly on your show, it really, really aggravates me and annoys me. I always feel compelled to send in a voice note on her behalf. It really sickens me that this poor woman has been made a scapegoat and has been banged up for 31 months, not allowed to see her family. And then you've got idiots like him you was on about earlier, going on about cutting people's throats and stuff, being able to walk free. It just really, really annoys me, and I feel really bad for Lucy and her family. And it's indicative of the way this country is. It really winds me up. So, yeah, and on the flag flying, I've got a Union flag and a St George's Cross flag hanging out of my window, one at the front, one at the back. I don't care. No one's going to tell me to take them down. Cheers, Mike.
Andy, top man, thank you very much indeed. Lucy Connolly, of course, very much the focus, because supposedly she's being let out this month, but nobody's sure exactly what the date's going to be and under what circumstances. Will she be gagged from speaking? Will she be told that she can't talk to the press? Nobody's very sure. Will she be warned that she could be taken back into custody if something that she does not please the state? Let's talk to Connie Shaw now, External Affairs Officer for the Free Speech Union, because she can tell us as well that this is not the only case. People are getting arrested, people are getting harassed by the police on a regular basis, probably a daily basis around the country, for things that they're supposedly saying. Very good morning to you, Connie.
Morning, Mike.
Let's talk about this guy, Robert Moss, who was apparently told by the Staffordshire police that his right to freedom of expression may be limited or must be limited to maintain public safety and order. What do they mean by that, freedom of expression? Sorry, I suppose you should give us the background to the story as well.
Yeah, so this is another case, yet another case of what feels like this police state that we seem to be living under now. So this is a case of a man called Robert Moss. He worked in the Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service for 28 years, and he's also been a trade union member for about 40 years and a committed Corbynista. And when he was actually unfairly dismissed from his role in 2021, the Employment Tribunal heard. But since then, he's continued to offer his guidance on a private Facebook group for firefighters. On that Facebook group, he was critical of the leadership and the management of Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Services. On the 8th of July, on the Tuesday morning, without any prior warning, he was woken up at 7 a.m. to loud banging, and he thought it was workmen outside. Right. And he then realised it was his front door. He looked out the window to see 4 police officers stood at his front door. He went downstairs in his dressing gown. He'd just been woken up. And when he went outside to speak to them, he was arrested under the Malicious Communications Act on suspicion of harassment without violence and sending an offensive communication. At this point, he had to choose whether he was going to go to the police station in his dressing gown or go back inside and get changed. He went back in to get changed. At this point, he didn't stop the police officers coming into his home because he'd been arrested. He was then invited to sit in the police car whilst 2 of them searched his home, seized 2 phones, a computer and his iPad. He was then taken to the police station. He was sat in a cell until his duty solicitor came. He was interviewed, he had his DNA taken, his fingerprint, his photo, and he said he felt like a criminal, like I'm sure anyone would. And he was interviewed and at that point given, released on bail, and at that point he was given these Orwellian conditions. The conditions of his bail included not only not being allowed to continue criticising Staffordshire Fire and Rescue, but he wasn't even allowed to talk publicly about the fact that he had been arrested.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? And one of the bail conditions also included being prohibited from posting any communication at all relating to the county's fire service. So technically speaking, he couldn't even have said, it's good to see that the fire service are out and about today. Always nice to see them supporting their local community. That would have been apparently against the police bail conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely draconian.
It's insane, isn't it?
It is just insane. And that's why, as my colleague Sam Armstrong said, the police are acting like a Stasi rather than a constabulary. Right. And as you said at the beginning, it is every day that people are being arrested. At the moment, police are arresting about 30 people a day for offensive messages on social media.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you can tell us what he actually wrote, what were the original offending...
Very anodyne criticisms of Staffordshire Fire and Rescue. It is not a crime yet to criticise public bodies that the taxpayer funds.
Yeah. No, of course not. I mean, for example, we used to make a joke whenever we'd see a fire engine racing past through some red lights, you know, there they go off to the Chinese again. You know, I presume if you posted that, you could be at risk of being arrested now.
Well, the issue here is, so a lot of the cases, people who are being arrested are often at the behest of people who feel like they're being unfairly criticised. So the complainants in this case is the chief officer and his deputy at Staffordshire Fire and Rescue Service.
Right. So what's the state of the investigation and what's the state of play with regard to his charges, if any?
So what happened next was that he was arrested on the Tuesday, released on bail, and then the following Friday he found out about the Free Speech Union through a friend, and we got in touch with him, and he was given a barrister, Tom Beardsworth, who is instructed by the FSU, and he had a special bail hearing in which Tom Beardsworth was successful in overturning those 2 Orwellian bail conditions. So now Robert is allowed to freely talk about the fact that he's been arrested.
Okay.
He's still under investigation, so we don't know what will happen next, but the FSU will be supporting him all the way.
Right.
And I think what's really cool about this case is that my politics and Robert's politics, mine and Toby's politics and Robert's, are oceans apart.
Yeah.
But the point is, we often get we are under fire a lot, the FSU, for supposedly only supporting people on a certain side of politics.
Yeah.
We are non-partisan. Robert has previously publicly criticised Toby in the past, but we are more than that. Doesn't matter to us. We're here to help you for your speech rights.
No, exactly right. And I mean, in your knowledge to what you see every single day, I mean, how many of these cases that start sort of end with no charges at all? Because in the end, surely most sensible people, even judges, would look at them and go, this is ridiculous.
So compared to the amount of people who are being arrested, a fraction of them ended up being convicted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that doesn't matter. The fact that you're being arrested in the first place, this case is very, very similar to Maxie Allen and Rosalind Levine, who were arrested by a group of police officers in front of their young daughter for criticising her local school.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. Saying that being arrested is not an important and terrible thing to happen. I'm just saying that it proves that most of the actions of the police are actually probably unlawful.
Yes, it's a wrongful arrest. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
It is awful. Well, thank you for everything you're doing, and Robert Moss hopefully will be another one of those who doesn't see any charges being brought. But thank you very much indeed. That's Connie Shaw, External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union. It is incredible what is going on out there. It really is. Lenny in the Elephant Castle says, "Morning, Mike. Starmer is yet again attaching himself to another foreign excursion, which makes him appear busy. It's his devious attempt to avoid the difficult job of fixing the foundations of our country that he promised." Well, he did promise, didn't he? Robin says, "That Plank, Stalin and Yvette blooper are so thick they don't comprehend that they are the smuggling gangs that need to be smashed," says Robin Oxford. And Ian from Lancashire, "This is the one they keep the list shorter." This is one way they keep the list shorter. He's talking about the NHS. "I have had texts to say they have my referral. I'm on the list to be given an appointment. It reduces appointments and the list." Yeah, exactly. Morning, Mike, says Mo. "How can Yvette Cooper say migrants are sent to a detention centre when the TikTok migrant arrived on Saturday and was in a hotel on Heathrow making videos on Tuesday?" Another lie. Well, he was already making them on Sunday. He literally spent 24 hours in custody, if you want to call it that, before he got put in a nice, very comfortable hotel outside Heathrow Airport. Stevie G on the NHS. Have a listen.
Morning, Mike. Stevie VG in Yorkshire here. I just wanted to say, the reason that people are coming off the waiting list and going privately is you might as well spend the money, mate, because if you keep it, retire, die, whatever, Rachel's going to grab it, so you might as well get yourself a bit of comfort while you can. Keep up the good work.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to have any money to leave to your children as well, don't worry about that. She's coming for all of that. I was reading something over the weekend about how complicated now the Labour government is trying to make the inheritance tax laws so that basically, somebody in government gets your money, no matter by hook or by crook. And so a lot of people now are just saying, just spend it. Don't even bother handing any of it away. Just spend it. Buy things, because otherwise the government's going to take it all away from you. 8:46.
the New York Times and the Hollywood Reporter, they told the real story. Downgraded deal. Netflix downgrades its deal with Harry and Meghan. The New York Times says Netflix loosens its ties with Harry and Meghan. That was the true story. What this is, I mean, you know, it's almost like you or me. You know, if we've got an idea, go to Netflix, and if they like it, they'll make it. So, as I said in my monologue, there may be a small retainer involved. But essentially, what this adds up to is Harry and Meghan have just lost $20 million a year.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:49. Now, I'm on holiday in Greece, says Gary. Visited Albania, where people are sleeping in the park on cardboard boxes. There were lots and lots of very, very expensive cars. The minimum wage in Greece is £6, but I'm paying £3 for a tin of pop. Who's got the right idea? Well, it's certainly not us. Doesn't seem like that, does it? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Rupert Bell coming up very shortly to tell us about William and Kate's forever home fallout. They may never live anywhere near Buckingham Palace, as it turns out. But right now, just before we do that, it's time for 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
And with The Sun, the back page, Ruben in a flap. Let's talk to Dan King, who's the Chelsea correspondent at The Sun. Dan, Ruben in a flap. Why is Ruben in a flap?
Well, because he's got a goalkeeping problem. He may have spent lots and lots of money on his attack, in fact about £200 million on his attack, but he's still got a goalkeeping issue. Yeah. Andre Onana's been injured all through the pre-season, so he had to turn to his current number 2, Altay Bayındır, and he had a flap at a corner, and that was the decisive moment in the game, and they lost, even though they deserved to win.
And this is the kick-off weekend for the Premier League, so it's all over The Sun today. Absolutely brilliant coverage. The goal did look a bit easy, didn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're a goalkeeper, you're saying, well, you know, that is what's going on in that penalty area as the ball comes in. Is that fair? Is that a foul? You know, is there a reason why he flaps at it? But if you're an attacking player, you're saying no. That's his problem. It's all in the rules of the game, and you've got to, you've got to do better.
Well, he's got to come for it, hasn't he? Isn't that what he should have done?
But the issue is he can't really come for it because he's got a player standing on him. As I say, it's completely legitimate what they do. But for instance, I was at the Chelsea game yesterday where Crystal Palace had a goal disallowed for a kind of technical rule related to the defensive wall, and you think, well, was that any more or less legitimate than what Arsenal and lots of other clubs do at corners and free kicks in terms of blocking and barging and whatever? I think there's there are some double standards in football at the moment as to what's legitimate and what's not.
Yeah, and again, you'll have a completely different view, I suppose, every single week with VAR and the way referees are treating the game and all the rest of it.
Oh no, it's completely. And I think you go back to the first match of the new Premier League season where almost everyone except I think probably the PGMOL think that there was a handball which should have resulted in a red card for Marcus Senesi of Bournemouth. And it seems that the VAR, even when there isn't a story in a game, will give you another story anyway.
Yeah, absolutely right. Brilliant stuff. Dan King, Chelsea correspondent for The Sun. Thank you very much indeed. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds with The Sun.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Might the deterioration of driving standards be connected to increased drug use, says Don in Chelmsford? Well, it might be, but I'm suggesting to you that it's probably more likely to be in reference to people who are driving here who haven't driven here before. Lisa says, a great show, just a thought, it would be cheaper for the government to buy up all the dinghies for sale online. No dinghies, no migrants. Good thinking. And one from Pete says, every Saturday on the M1 it's blocked with overloaded cars driven by foreigners hogging the centre lane at 40 to 50 miles an hour. Yeah, well, who can say? But you do see a lot of foreign cars out there with foreign registration, because people say, well, do you know they're foreign? Well, because they've got a plate that says they're from a foreign country. That would be my suggestion to you. 8:52, Rupert Bell is here, Talks Royal correspondent, because we've got a story at the weekend about William and Kate moving to a new house, right? Vacating cottages next to 8-bed Windsor mansion, and we'll see where they're going now. Rupert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I was reading over the weekend that it may well be that Buckingham Palace becomes a place where nobody really lives.
Well, I don't think anybody really wants to live in it.
No. It's too old, isn't it?
It's being renovated
Yeah.
at the moment, and it is going to probably be... And the King doesn't want to live in there. Obviously, it's being renovated, so I don't think it's somewhere where any member of the royal family sees as their home. And obviously, the King spent much of his time at Highgrove. I suppose you might have described that his forever home.
Yeah.
Whereas now it looks as if, well, very definitely, the Prince and Princess of Wales are upscaling to the 8-bedroom cottage, in inverted commas, that's called Adelaide Cottage in Windsor Great Park. It's being refurbished, and the sort of slight fallout is that it appears that two groups of people living in 2 cottages were asked to move on,
right,
and move to other accommodation within the Great Park, because obviously maybe the Waleses feel they don't want people living too close to them, so that affording them
would these be
a
people
degree of privacy.
Would these be people that work in the sort of the royal family? Would they be people that have jobs inside Windsor Great Park?
Not necessarily, because anyone can rent, presumably approved. So I don't know the details of who the families are that have been moved and found other accommodation, and presumably if they've done it right, they wouldn't have suddenly said, well, you move, and if you've moved to a bigger house, well, you've got to pay more rent, because that, I think, would be deemed as somewhat, well, a bit of a PR gaffe anyway, if they did that. So I'm not suggesting they have, but they have been found other accommodation, according to the article. And at the time, the families living in those houses were surprised to be asked to move on. But
yes.
I suppose for the Waleses, where you now suddenly, or your children, 3 children approaching teenagers, the 4-bedroom cottage that they're living now in, it may not be deemed for them suitable for the next few years before Prince William becomes king.
Right. And presumably, if he was to become king, he couldn't live there, could he? Where would he go? Would he have to go would he have to go to Clarence House or somewhere?
No, he doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, if it's within Windsor Great Park, there's probably no reason why he couldn't stay there, although maybe he might want to move into Windsor Castle. I mean, the King seems to, you have to have the ability to move houses pretty quickly, because there's plenty of them to choose from, whether it be Sandringham and Balmoral. The King's also got another house up there that he used to stay in rather than Balmoral. So there's plenty of accommodation available for members of the royal family. But in terms of when he becomes king, if he wanted to stay there, there would be nothing to stop him, because obviously the current king does go to Highgrove as and when his diary allows,
so there's
him to.
There's no necessity to have a place in London then for the king?
I think he probably would have to have somewhere where he'd go to, because he might have to spend a bit more time there, as a result of his position as the king. But, Windsor's not that far away, so it is possible, and he doesn't have to worry about a traffic jam on the M4 to get back to Windsor. So it's not it's not too difficult to get back to the forever home, as they describe it, if that was to be the case.
So does Buckingham Palace just become a sort of tourist trail then, and a kind of a historic palace?
Well, I'm sure it would be used as it would be for garden parties, state occasions, and that, I think, is the long-term intention. But whether it would be like the Queen, the late Queen, who would be living there and throughout as much as she could, that was her place of residence. So I think the dynamics of Buckingham Palace is changing, and perhaps will become more accessible, more open, more tourist allowed to go round at more times of the year, potentially, once the renovations are completed.
Interesting. Let me ask you about one other thing that I know you've got a great interest in, horse racing going on strike on September the 10th. This is pretty unprecedented. Apparently they're not happy. The British Horse Racing Authority are going to walk out because Rachel Reeves wants to up the tax on them.
Yes, she does. She wants to bring it all in line with the sort of tax that's related to casino gambling. And the racing industry is up in arms about this because this will have a huge impact on the levy.
Yeah.
And what the racing authorities are trying to draw attention to, that racing employs an awful lot of people from... and there's a lot of ancillary industries that are dependent on racing, and it's a vital part of the rural economy. And the rural economy has come under, obviously the farmers have been up in arms about what they've done to the inheritance tax laws around people who own farms. It may be targeting the wrong people, and the same applied. Racing feels that they are a special case. But the problem for racing is, if you take... the government don't seem to be for turning. If they've got an idea, however much it might seem on paper unfair to do, the government say they're short of money. And despite the fact that Lady Starmer is a big racing fan, so hopefully she might be able to have a word in Sir Keir Starmer's ear once he's back in the country, to maybe plead racing's case in this example. And I think there's going to be, as I say, no racing on the 10th, which is an unprecedented move from the racing authorities, just trying to highlight the issue. But a lot of people outside of racing who don't know racing might say, well, perhaps are there any more special cases? But racing has to be strong if it believes it has any case to make through. They're trying their best. I know that in my local area of Stratford-upon-Avon, our Liberal Democrat MP has actually said, I support racing's case, because she knows if it does go, because this is a big racing area. So there are MPs who are shouting from the top with regard to this.
Good stuff. Great to see you. Rupert Bell, thank you very much indeed. Talk's Royal correspondent and also Talk Sports racing correspondent too. Lots going on. Coming up, Graham Stringer MP is coming here after the news. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. We are here. It's Monday the 18th of August. It happens to be my son's 21st birthday, so I wish him a very happy birthday. I don't think he's up yet, but don't worry. I'm sure he will be later on. Lots and lots to talk about this morning. You just heard Rupert Bell there talking about a pending strike in the horse racing business, because even they are sick to the back teeth of Rachel Reeves. She's apparently trying to put their tax up from 15% to 21%. They don't want to do it. Meanwhile, she's had to make an apology and a clarification to the House of Lords and the House of Commons. They've had to correct the entry into Hansard because she managed to get her own figures wrong when she was presenting her budgetary statement on pensions and on unemployment. She actually got the figures wrong. She's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, the big story on the front pages, of course, relates to the summit this afternoon in Washington, D.C. at the White House, where European leaders are all travelling over there alongside Keir Starmer. You've got Volodymyr Zelensky there as well. Macron, President Emmanuel Macron of France, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and the Finnish President Alexander Stubb is also going to be there. Apparently they're going to try and influence the idea that Donald Trump is going to make Volodymyr Zelensky pretty much surrender to Vladimir Putin to bring a lasting peace to the region. Whether it means that they'll have to give away land, whether it means that Putin gets what he wants, seems to be the big conversation at the moment. Europe tells Trump, don't give in to Putin, it says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Lots of other stories around as well, though, including, of course, Havant Council slammed over trying to give migrant housing to migrants in the centre of towns, because what they say is they need to be near shops, they need to be near schools, they need to be near libraries, they need to be near the community in order for them to integrate properly and to avoid racism. We've got a judge who let a violent migrant stay in this country because it turns out she was actually on the board of a council for migrants, for a charity for migrants. She also worked for migrants for free. It's a bit of a conflict of interest. 8 pubs are forced to shut every week. That's another piece of news for you. And Hugh Edwards is still holding on to the £200,000 that he got given by the BBC erroneously before he was found guilty of being a paedophile. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Also, James Bond should be a man. According to Dame Helen Mirren and according to Pierce Brosnan. And of course, we're going to tell you all about how serial shoplifters are avoiding prison. So much going on this morning. It's Monday morning, it's 9:05. Let's get it on with Mark on policing the protests.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. I've been looking all over the internet for videos of police officers kneeling down in front of these pink ladies with St George crosses and Union Jack flags, but I can't find any videos of kneeling police officers. There's lots of videos of them kneeling down when there was Black Lives Matter protests. There was lots of kneeling police officers then, but I'm struggling to find any now. I don't know. Can anybody else help? Have you seen any? Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, Mark, almost as if we knew that was exactly what was going on. That's a thing of great beauty, that, in what we do. Yeah, extraordinary stuff. Graham Stringer MP is here from Blackley and Middleton South. He's a Labour MP, of course. Liam Halligan, also here. Let me just kick off with Liam briefly, because, Liam, if you don't mind, I'm going to play you this. This is Rachel Reeves, a Lords committee from last month.
At the same time, we also have a challenging economic inheritance with high levels of tax as a share of GDP, historic high levels of government debt, and then also economic growth that really for the last 15 years has been very poor by historical standards because of the weak productivity growth that we've experienced in that period of time.
I mean, I'm sorry to say this, Liam, but it doesn't give you any great hope for the future, does it? I mean, she's been forced to correct the parliamentary record after bungling her own figures, and that's kind of how she tries to explain what's going on in her head.
I mean, let's be clear. I wouldn't wish being Chancellor of the Exchequer of the UK at the moment on my worst enemy. It was a terrible inheritance, Mike, that they got from the Tories. I mean, both you and I recognise that. We complained about it at the time. When she came in, the tax burden was already at a 70-year high, and also growth was reasonable, but not particularly good by historic standards. There were lots of boasts about it being the highest in the G7, and it was just about, but it was still pretty anemic. But crikey, since she's come in, she's made the situation a lot worse. She's pushed up tax rates. She's getting less tax revenue. And what I'm really worried about, Mike, is the fact that government borrowing costs are absolutely spiraling. Yeah. And, you know, it's become a bit of a theme, I know, of what you've been talking about, what I've been talking about, that so much now of the tax revenue that is being raised from hardworking people is now going on debt service costs for the government's debt. It's absolutely mad. And that's why, since the Bank of England cut those base rates a couple of Thursdays ago, we've actually seen on the financial markets government borrowing costs go up. And that is really, I mean, to use a technical economic term, Mike, that's out to lunch. That is not what should be happening at all. That's a sign, I'm afraid, of kind of systemic distress. When the Bank of England cuts interest rates and some mortgage providers are putting interest rates up because they're so worried that the public finances are spiraling out of control, and they don't believe the Bank of England, the bureaucrats on the Monetary Policy Committee, I'd say they are bureaucrats rather than proper technocrats or proper economists these days, with respect to them. The financial markets don't believe when the MPC, the Monetary Policy Committee, says inflation's going to come down anytime soon. Yeah. That's not what we're feeling when we go to the shops. You know, you're going for a few bits and pieces for dinner and you've dropped £100.
Yeah. Oh, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And I was reading this morning in The Sun, the average price of a home tumbled by more than £10,000 over the course of the summer because houses just aren't selling because of the stamp duty. So, I mean, again, the stamp duty isn't raising any revenue because people just not paying it.
And when you buy and sell houses, Mike, you know, it's not just that transaction, it's everything else. It's you get your building work done, the movers, the conveyancers, the accountants, the lawyers, everything. It's a big economic process to buy and sell properties and everything connected with it. But, you know, Rachel Reeves is under enormous pressure because the left of her party, the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, they're far more left-wing than the Labour Party that Blair was overseeing when he was Labour leader. And she's part of a cabinet that's a lot more left-wing than Blair's cabinet. And these guys just want a bigger state for ideological reasons. They want tax rates to go up for ideological reasons. And she does as well. She's to the left of her political mentor, Gordon Brown. But when you keep pulling the tax lever, putting tax rates up, there comes a point, Mike, it's called the Laffer curve. Again, I know you've been explaining that to your viewers and listeners, and you've been doing a pretty good job, I think, of getting these complex concepts across. But the idea is, when you put tax rates up to a certain amount, people do things which means there's less tax revenue. They don't just evade or leave the country. They just, you know, don't expand their businesses or they close their businesses. And she has to learn, Mike, as ideologically offensive as it may be for her, that ever-rising taxes don't work. I think we're at the point where taxation is at such a level in this country that it's become counterproductive. Yeah,
people won't pay anymore. I mean, I was hearing stories at the weekend of people who, to avoid inheritance tax, are now literally spending the money and just buying things with it so that, you know, it's easier for them to gift basically things to their kids or to other members of their family rather than to leave them a house or something.
The big one, of course, which a lot of talk viewers and listeners will really resonate with them, whether they're working for someone or they've got their own little business, which so many people in the UK do, of course, is the big rise in employer national insurance. And it wasn't that she just raised the headline rate of national insurance for employers. It's 15% now on top of the 10 or whatever percent it is that the punters pay, all of which, of course, is on top of income tax. It's not just the rise in the headline rate, it's the way she sneakily lowered the threshold where you start paying national insurance from, you know, down all the way down to five grand. And that means those little part-time jobs, the little jobs that students have, young people, those first entry jobs, they've just become prohibitively expensive for employers to offer. So that's why you're seeing such a slowdown in the labour market and a slowdown in national insurance contributions going to the exchequer, even though the main employer rate has gone up.
Yeah.
And in the end, she has to look out of the window. She has to see what's going on, the impact of her policies. And I know, I don't want to sort of, haul over past grievances, Mike, but I'm afraid I think you're right on the non-doms leaving the UK. It's happening.
Yeah, it is.
I don't actually believe the HMRC figures,
No.
and I can't believe I'm saying that. But not because I'm trying to make some political point. I'm not. Just because from in my own life, I know lots of people in the world of finance, and it is an exodus, Mike.
It's massive.
Exodus.
I get people every day calling me to say they're not necessarily the wealthiest people, but they're leaving. If they can leave, if they've got a business they can run online, they're going. Their kids are going. Their kids are coming out of university and taking time to go and live abroad because there's nothing for them here. It's a thing. There's no question about it. Listen, Liam, I've got to run. Thank you very much indeed. Great to talk to you. Columnist at The Telegraph, of course, a man that knows everything that needs to be known about the way the government should be running the economy. In fact, he should be running it. It'd be a lot better. Just before we speak to Graham Stringer, let's get a voice note from Darren.
Right, Darren from Suffolk. Great show as ever. We should reclaim our flag. We should be proud of our flag. We shouldn't fly our flag, though, and if it's up there, we should take it down and get our activists to do that. But we'll leave everybody else's flag up. Yeah, that's great. We just don't believe this gaslighter. I mean, they spend all day, every day, everybody associated with Labour, tweeting about reform. You can't trust them. They've got 4 years to go. They should be governing. They're acting like little activists. They're scared of reform. I mean, can you imagine having a small competitor with sort of 5 employees and all you do every day is tweet about them? Is that going to raise their profile or not? It's unbelievable, really. I just can't work it out. These people have never had a job in business. They're clueless.
Darren, thanks very much indeed for that. Let's talk to Graham Stringer, Blackley and Middleton South Labour MP. Graham, very good morning to you.
Morning.
Now, I don't know whether you were able to hear what Liam Halligan was saying there, but he didn't have very many good things to say about the state of the economy or the amount of borrowing that this government's getting involved in.
I agreed a lot with what Liam said. Well, one of the things I didn't agree with him about when he said that this Parliamentary Labour Party is the most left-wing Labour Party that there's been for some time, and that's why the benefit cuts that the Chancellor of the Exchequer put forward didn't go through. I voted against the Chancellor's proposals, not for those reasons, because I don't think it did what it said on the tin. What we needed was a proper discussion. There have to be bigger cuts than the Chancellor was talking about at the time if we're going to get the economy stabilised. But we have to have a proper discussion about that and make real choices with real priorities. What she was proposing would have hit people who needed the money and actually wouldn't have taken some of the fat out of the system. I remember the time when the Labour Party used to say, we need a bonfire of the Quangos.
Yeah.
We still need a bonfire of the Quangos. Should go now. So we've got more civil servants in London now than we had 10 years ago. Are we getting better services because of that? No. Now, those are just 2 examples where we can have a serious discussion what our priorities should be. And my criticism of the Chancellor is that she didn't prepare any ground, prepare the facts and information so that we could make those choices.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because an awful lot of the plans are nothing more than kind of, say, natural wastage. I mean, they did announce a plan to try and reduce the numbers in the civil service, to reduce the headcount, but then when they announced it, it was really just a sort of a voluntary scheme for people to retire a little bit earlier, maybe, or to take up a position where they would work for less time in the week. You know, there's nobody really taking the bull by the horns, it seems to me. And the same with the benefits cuts. And you're quite right. I know not everybody voted with the government on that. And not everybody votes with them on everything, but the size of the Labour Party majority is such that they're very likely to lose a vote massively, aren't they?
It's most unlikely that they will lose a vote, but there was a time during the discussion when effectively the Prime Minister didn't have a majority on the floor of the House for what was being proposed by his Chancellor.
Yeah.
Now, that's careless when you've got this huge majority. And he and she got into that position because the proposals weren't very good and they'd not done the basic political groundwork on issues.
Yeah, I mean, are you worried, though, as well, about the sort of unpopularity of this Prime Minister? Keir Starmer, the most unpopular Prime Minister, I think we can say, for many a year, certainly more unpopular than I can remember. Are you worried about that as a Labour MP?
Of course. Who wouldn't be worried if the leader of your party had hit record levels of unpopularity? And I agree with what the person who phoned into said. We shouldn't be giving publicity to reform. We should be governing competently with a real story about why we're taking what will be difficult decisions. The people I talk to, my constituents and other people, they know the economy is not in a strong state. They know tough decisions have got to be made. But you have to go out and argue about why you're taking those decisions, on what basis, what principles you're taking them on. And we're simply not doing that. If we go back to the first terrible decision, really, that if you knock on doors, people still bring up the winter fuel allowance.
Yeah.
That decision had no background to it. If people had taken up the pensioner tax credit, it wouldn't even have saved any money. But I can assure you that we've been doing a bit of knocking on doors in my constituency, and people are still talking about it, even though the government have rowed back on it.
Yeah, and people still talk about immigration, Graham, as the biggest worry now that they have in everyday life. And again, you know, I've got to ask you about Yvette Cooper. Yvette Cooper 11 days ago said that they'd started this, you know, one in, one out scheme. They'd started to detain people and they would be returning them. And she then said, we'll be giving you regular updates. And we haven't had one since.
Well, if we go back a bit further, the gangs haven't been smashed. They're not going to be smashed. If they were going to be smashed, we'd have smashed gangs in our big cities a long time ago. So we're not going to smash them when they're operating from the four corners of the world.
Yeah.
Secondly, the one in, one out is still accepting people coming into this country in an illegal way will stay here. And there are perfectly good models out there that work in Europe. If you go to Denmark seem to, within all the rules, they're still members of the European Union, Convention on Human Rights, they have solve the problem by being tough when people arrive. We are not being sensible when people arrive. We're prioritising people arriving illegally and putting them to the head of the housing queue, putting them to the head of GP queues, dental queues. Many of my constituents phone up and say, can't get a dentist, can you help me? And sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I do my best. But people are getting dental treatment when they arrive and they're getting funded. Whereas if we use the Danish system, where their level of immigration in a perfectly civilised social democratic country is tiny.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because there's a sense as well, you know, Keir Starmer will no doubt say he has to go over and sort of talk to Donald Trump and sort out what's going on in Ukraine. But there's a sense from a lot of the people that listen to this show and to watch this show who say, you know, he's got a lot of problems to fix at home. He hasn't really still addressed the problem of migrant hotels and putting people, closing them down and moving people out, and the demonstrations that are going on now up and down the country every single week and every single weekend. You know, when is he going to do that? And does he know that he needs to do it?
It goes back to my point. Obviously, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has a role on the international stage. He can't ignore Ukraine, can't ignore what's happening in the Middle East, because at the end of the day, our security depends on getting the best solutions to those almost intractable problems. But if there was a narrative and a set of principles we were working to, then we would know what the Foreign Secretary, what the Home Secretary, what the other members of the Cabinet, why they were solving these problems. But we seem to be jumping from one policy to another with no coherent narrative.
No, I know, which is not helpful at all. Graham, listen, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Graham Stringer, MP for Blackley and Middleton South from the Labour Party. Not particularly happy, by the sounds of it, with the way this government is actually stewarding the country. 51,239 is the migrant tracker number this morning, arrived since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. 2,500 have arrived since 11 days ago when they announced the one in, one out strategy. 2,500 in, none out. Let's get a voice note from Ian.
Great show, great start to the week. This Starmer and his coalition of the irrelevant, I do hope they're not all travelling to Washington separately in their own transport, because that wouldn't be very green now, would it? So perhaps they can all meet up somewhere like London and just get on a plane together. Just they want to call themselves Coalition of the Willing, show that they're willing to compromise. How about that?
Yes, that would be good. I mean, there's probably some constitutional rule, like the royal family, which says they can't all fly in the same plane in case somebody shoots it down. You know how it is. But yeah, I'm sure they don't. I mean, why does the leader of Finland have to be there? I suppose they're right next to Russia, so maybe he's got some, sort of skin in the game. But Starmer, I don't believe, needs to be there. He had a big, long meeting with Trump yesterday. We'll see what happens at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We'll be bringing you that, of course. That'll be part of Jeremy Kyle's show this afternoon on Talk Drive. Coming up next, though, we're going to be talking to Ben Pyle, because we've got a couple of decent stories to tell you about, including one where a Labour-led council planted hundreds of trees, right, as a kind of a measure to try and green the atmosphere and the environment. And they've all died because they forgot to water them. I mean, what? Do they know how trees grow? Do they know what you have to do? No, of course they don't. It's 9:24.
About corruption in prisons. We know the amount of drugs that are coming in, the amount of inappropriate relationships, and what we don't know, and the MOJ is not transparent about, is how far up it goes. And I think that corruption at a higher level can completely destabilise a prison. It sounds to me, it smacks of, well, let's just brush this one under the carpet. And I think that's pretty much what they did.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 26 minutes past 9. We're here, of course, till 10 o'clock. Kevin O'Sullivan is in for Julie Hartley-Brewer, by the way. So you'll be seeing his glorious visage this morning, just before 10 o'clock, when we find out what's coming up on his show. We've got much more to do, of course, at Talk all the way through the day, because getting to 5 o'clock, it will then be time to head over to the White House with Jeremy Kyle, where he'll be talking you through the meeting between the coalition of the Willies, as I like to call them, and Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. Where they all decide whether or not they're going to give up bits of Ukraine in order to placate Putin. Ben, a very good morning to you.
Me, good morning.
Nice to see you. Before we get to the story about the hundreds of trees dying, I just wondered what your view would be of all of these leaders of European nations. I think there's about 6 or 7 of them going. Presumably all going in their own planes, presumably all going with their own entourages, presumably all going with, 55 special advisors and all the rest of it. I mean, they love a gangplank, don't they? And waving to people when they come down the steps. What's the carbon footprint of this trip, do you reckon?
To be honest, I've no idea. Do you know? I think someone else put it correctly. I can't remember who it was. It's not hypocrisy. It's hierarchy. They're allowed to go around in private jets.
Yeah.
That's how it works. They're saving the planet. They're our saviours. They've never heard of Zoom. We're on Zoom. We're not doing any CO2 emissions here.
No.
But that's not good enough for them. They need the red carpets, and they love to. I mean, if there were, if that wasn't the case, Keir Starmer would have to spend some time here, and that he doesn't seem to want to do that.
No.
So
because maybe he's trying to avoid Ed Miliband, who's constantly popping up around the corner, sort of saying, "What can I do for you now, Your Majesty?" Sorry, Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to avoid Ed Miliband? We seem to be captured by increasing air taxes and restrictions on our travel, and we can't get away from the ukulele playing madman of Westminster, who's sort of
I know, and
essentially sort of locking us down.
Apparently, he's really very reluctant to reveal the number of flights he's taken himself.
Yeah, well, this is Claire Coutinho's latest gambit is to sort of say Ed Miliband's flying here, there, and everywhere, and of course he is. I mean, Ed Miliband is the epitome of a hypocritical minister for the environment of any description. He's always on planes. He's always jolting around. He's having a really good time. It seems, while in office. And of course, famously, he lives in a very lovely part of London, very leafy, very big.
He's got two kitchens. He's got 2 kitchens. I remember the 2 kitchens, one for him and one for the nanny. I mean, that's what everybody's got, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, but I'm not that impressed with Claire Coutinho's argument. I mean, she's right. He is a climate hypocrite, but as I say, it's all about hypocrisy. But what we really need to hear from Claire Coutinho is what she and what the Conservatives going to do about net zero, and all the stuff that they can point to about how silly Ed Miliband is, and he really is a very silly man. They're not saying we're going to reverse net zero. They're not saying what the target's year is going to be, and so I don't really care. What about these kind of games, and Ed Davey, of course, is this morning complaining that now the car sector is vulnerable to Ed Miliband's net zero agenda. Well, of course it is, but it was made vulnerable by the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives when they were in coalition, and then the next Conservative governments that followed, including Claire Coutinho. Who now seems to be surrounded by only slightly, marginally less mad green blob organisations.
That's the Tories' massive problem in almost every aspect of government, because we've got a story in the Telegraph this morning saying that there's a Tory WhatsApp group that's been discovered where they're all having arguments about migrant policy, because half of them are so wet that they don't want to, be nasty to migrants. They don't want to stop them coming in. They still want to bring them all in because they think it's a good thing. Similarly, anybody like Robert Jenrick, who talks about immigration and talking tough about it, people say, well, hang on a minute, you were an immigration minister. You were in the last government when all of this was going on. This morning, I've just seen a tweet from Andrew Griffith, MP, who, believe it or not, is wielding a chainsaw to the 300-page Labour unemployment bill, as he calls it, right? So he's trying to do an Elon Musk. Have we got it? Yeah, let's play. Have a look at this.
Politicians love to talk about how they're going to cut red tape, but when in government, they never do. Faced with Labour's 300-page, job-killing, trade union-inspired employment rights bill, the next Conservative government will repeal all of the job-destroying measures in that bill. We'll effectively take a chainsaw to Labour's job-killing bill. It's business that creates jobs, not government. Socialists just don't understand that. The Conservatives do understand business, and that's why we will be taking a chainsaw to so much of Labour's red tape.
Amazing. I'm not quite sure what to make of that, to be honest. I'm surprised he wasn't wearing goggles for a start, because, you know, health and safety and all that, gloves. What's he doing?
It's channeling Ed Davey and Javier Milei from Argentina at the same time.
And Elon Musk.
He doesn't know. Yeah, right.
He had one on the stage. Or possibly the Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy, old Leatherface.
Yeah, it's a stunt. It's a silly stunt. We don't want any more stunts. We need to know what the policies are. We need serious evidence of serious policy work. This is it's symbolic, and we've had years of this kind of.
It's like they've all decided to go down the Ed Davey route of falling in the water because you get good coverage and you get on TV. And I mean, yes, he has got on TV, but I hope he's going to clear up all that litter as well. By the way.
Yeah, right. Well, maybe you could recycle it. I don't know. Put it.
Yeah.
Well, they're certainly going to recycle. I mean, they're probably just going to recycle Labour Party policy because, after all, Ed Miliband is nothing but continuity Boris Johnson.
I know.
You know, the Saudi Arabia of wind.
It's depressing, isn't it? Let's finish up with this ridiculous story from Darlington, up in the northeast of England, where it turns out that a load of saplings, hundreds of saplings planted by Darlington Borough Council in the village of Merrybent, which I presume was to offset some kind of carbon use of some kind. Anyway, they forgot to water them, and so they've all died.
So, well... Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's odd that you'd need to water a tree.
Well, I think you have to water them. I mean, I'm not an expert on growing trees, but I'm pretty sure you have to sort of nurture them at the beginning when they're saplings.
Well, then how were there ever trees before there were gardeners to water them?
Like that's the chicken and egg question, surely.
Yeah, right. So you know, trees managed for billions of years before we turned up to sort of
but they probably planted them in ground that wasn't suitable for, you know, the reason trees grow naturally is they grow in ground which suits them, right?
Yeah,
if you try and plant them somewhere where it does not suitable, that's probably why they don't last.
I did wonder if there was a climate change angle, and you know, so whether officials at Darlington Council, which is close to Durham.
Well, there is you're right, there is one, because a spokesman for the Labour-led authority told the BBC the tree deaths were caused by exceptionally dry and warm weather.
Well, I had a look at the data. To 2025, the year to date is between January and July is only the 9th driest on the record since 1880. I'll read you the dry years were 1905, 1949, 1989, 1952, 1887, 1929, 1959, and 1896. So we're getting weather the same we had as about a century and a bit ago.
Yeah.
Due to climate change. Who knew? So all the officials that sort of were responsible for looking after these trees needed to do was to go and look at these records. You can get them from the Met Office and say, well, there's a 10% chance that we're going to get another dry summer. So these are going to be vulnerable. But of course, they're all going to say it's a dry summer, therefore it's climate change, even though there's no substantial change over the last century.
This story can only be beaten by Coldplay's Chris Martin, who, to offset one of Coldplay's tours, decided to plant a load of trees in Sri Lanka. But unfortunately for him, it was so hot in Sri Lanka that they all burned down. Not only meaning that the trees didn't exist anymore, but they created a massive carbon footprint of black smoke going into the sky.
Well, they should have done that with Coldplay's tunes as well, and maybe Chris Martin's endless virtue signalling
shoes,
as well.
Definitely his Coldplay shoes. Yeah, absolutely right. Ben, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Ben Park, writer and co-founder of Climate Debate UK, of course, a very sensible man. When there's no sense out there in the world, you have to just look for it. Do you know what I mean? This from Glenys in Leicester. Back to the NHS. I was very pleased to receive an urgent appointment for a suspended melanoma within 2 weeks. It turns out that I'm not actually being seen by a dermatologist. I will be seeing someone who will take photos of the area. They will not be able to give me a diagnosis. The photos will be assessed by an AI program and a dermatologist. It will take 3 weeks for the results, and then I will have to wait again to be seen. God knows how long to actually be treated. Hopeless, isn't it? That's absolutely ridiculous. Mark from Doncaster here. Oh dear, waking up to hear Keith Starr and his coalition of the irrelevant are heading to Washington to hold Zelensky's hand. Don't they realise they have zero influence on Trump or the outcome of the war? Great show. Thank you for keeping us all sane in these crazy times. It's my pleasure. Let's get a voice note from Wayne.
Good morning, Mike. It must be about who you know at the police then. I had a situation where unfortunately we lost our 7-year-old son. And my ex-wife on the day that he passed away sent a horrible message to me, basically saying that I deserved it, that my new wife deserved it, she didn't deserve children, it could have happened to a better person, etc., etc. And then obviously then that she would be coming to the funeral, and I couldn't stop her. So I sent this to the police and the relevant communications, and they said there's nothing they can do. Because she hasn't made a threat against me of violence, and because she hasn't used any racial connotations, despite how despicable it was, there is literally nothing they can do. Yet you can criticise a fire chief and be arrested and then have bail conditions, etc., etc. This world, Mike, two-tier it's beyond what our wildest dreams.
Yeah, that's awful. Wayne, I'm so sorry to hear that. What a terrible story. And what on earth are the police thinking? You know, I mean, obviously they shouldn't be arresting the guy for the fire tweet. That shouldn't be happening. But they should be considering, if that is what was said to Wayne and his family, you know, they should be considering doing something about that, surely. And if they can't do anything about that, how can they do anything about anything else? That's the problem. Coming up, we're going to talk to Will Patterson, brand identity designer. There's a lot of pubs closing down, 8 pubs per week, I think it is, on the radar now for because of the national insurance increases and the minimum wage increases on Rachel Reeves' watch. But also, Brewdog seem to be having a problem as well. They've been axed by almost 2,000 pubs, and it's a business that's gone from absolute riches to rags overnight. It's extraordinary. We'll find out what that's all about coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:41, I'm Mike Graham with you until 10 o'clock, and then Kevin O'Sullivan's going to be here. What a treat for you all. He's here from Monday to Thursday this week, filling in for, of course, Julie Hartley-Brewer, who's off. Trump is doing what he needs to do for peace and the best interest for his country. Good for him, says Sharon in Staffordshire. One from Bill in Cheshire. Migrant hotels, ha-ha. How can people be protesting about having 300-plus well-educated, cultured, well-dressed doctors, engineers and nuclear scientists living in the hotel next door? Yeah, I see what you did there. Simon in Nottingham says, stop giving money out to the immigrants, put them in secure camps and then send them all back and stop benefits to the lazy Brits. Make them work. Well, that's very much a two-tier point, isn't it? And very much something that I think a lot of people would agree with. We can't continue to give loads of people money for not working. And similarly, we can't afford to give people loads of money just for coming here illegally. You know, because the people actually paying tax in this country are the ones who are suffering. The story this morning on page 2 of The Sun, basically 8 pubs are being forced to shut every single week. Thousands and thousands of pubs have closed since Rachel Reeves brought in her new rule of law as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and the fact that since April, national insurance costs have gone through the roof, as has the minimum wage. Kate Nichols is here, the Chair of UK Hospitality. Kate, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
Good to see you. It's a real problem, this. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. It seems to be getting worse.
You're absolutely right. As every month goes by, we are seeing more and more premises closing their doors for good. And these are valuable community assets. And once they are gone, they usually are gone for good. So on top of 8 pubs a week closing in the first half of 2025, we've seen 2 neighbourhood restaurants a day closing and 100,000 fewer jobs in hospitality as a result. That means our communities are poorer, our high streets are poorer, and as an exchequer, they're taking less revenue in as a result.
They really are. And I mean, what are these pubs going to end up being in the end inside communities? Because they are, as you say, they're more than just a place where people are going to have a drink. They're sort of community hubs in a lot of towns. And that's where they seem to be, you know, losing out the most. I mean, in the cities, probably less so, I'm assuming. But in a lot of rural communities, you know, the pub is the only place people can meet.
Absolutely right. You know, in our suburban areas, in our neighbourhoods, in our communities, in our rural communities and coastal communities, the pub is the lifeline. It's the hub of village life. It's where people come and socialise, meet with family and friends, catch up, and also it combats loneliness for a lot of people. It's the place that they pop into, that they can check on the staff can check on whether they're doing okay. In our towns and city centres, you're seeing empty sites. They are just boarded up, particularly on the restaurant side, and that means our high streets are not vibrant and vital and dynamic. There's no reason to go and visit, and it becomes a vicious downward spiral where you get a lack of investment, a lack of employment, and that really is a drain on the community.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, in terms of the amount of consumption that's going on, is that down as well because people are spending less money?
It's pretty flat. What we're seeing is around 2% extra sales on average year on year, but currently inflation is running double that amount, and in the hospitality sector, the costs going into the business are 10% inflation rate that we're seeing on food, drink, energy. So the price of doing business, the cost of doing business, inexorably going up, and revenues are flat. So put simply, the money coming through the front door, however good it may be, is not sufficient to cover the cost of doing business, and particularly, as you rightly say, those tax and regulatory costs, which are a direct result of decisions taken by the Chancellor at the last budget. It's never been harder for these businesses to make a profit. A third of them are operating below break even, and they're running out of road and closing at a rate of knots.
Yeah. And I mean, is there any hope? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, we very much hope that we can get through this summer. The bright spot is the budget at in the autumn.
Ooh.
We need confirmation there that the Chancellor is going to introduce lower business rates bills for those hospitality businesses. That would be a real lifeline. We need her to fix NICs and reduce the disproportionate burden that it places on our businesses and our workers. We are literally taxing businesses and taxing jobs out of existence in hospitality. And what we urgently need is no more taxes. You can't tax your way to growth. You can't tax the economy to growth. And if we do see more taxes, then consumer confidence will nosedive and high streets will suffer as a result.
And I mean, we're also hearing tax is going up in councils, like council tax is likely to go up. So presumably business rates will also rise, and that will give publicans even more headache.
Absolutely. After employment costs, business rates and property costs are the second biggest cost line that our businesses have to face. You have to be able to cover your business rates bills before you can open your door. So it would be game over overnight if those business rates were increased in the autumn budget. They need to come down. You need to rebalance bricks and mortar and clicks and mortar and make sure that online businesses pay their fair share.
Yeah, absolutely right. Great to talk to you, Kate Nichols. Thank you very much indeed, Chair of UK Hospitality. Let's get a voice note from Sean on NHS appointments.
So my local hospital, which is down at the bottom of all the league tables, a few years ago now, I'll get to that, was I had an urgent appointments for rheumatology. I was suspected to be having quite a serious problem. Everything was urgent. The GP got it through. He got it rushed in. Yes, they came back. They gave me a scan. I think it was a rheumatology scan on my wrists and ankles, and they were checking for cysts and things and arthritis. I was told, because of the urgency of the situation, the next appointment would be guaranteed within 6 weeks. So that was 42 days. 42 days. 887 days later, the follow-up appointment came in, and I still have the letter. So if any of your researchers want it, I am happy to give it to them. And even the consultant, when I put it under her nose and said, just explain to me, is this the urgent follow-up to the previous appointment? She said, yes. And I said, that was 887 days ago.
That's crikey. It's only 3 years, isn't it? That's ridiculous. That is absolutely bonkers. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, the trouble is, these are so many stories like that, right? So many stories. Just ridiculous. Vern in Southampton says, Mike, the Tory MP with the chainsaw needed a stunt double to actually use the chainsaw. It's clearly not him using the chainsaw. Do you have another look? Yeah, let's have another look.
Politicians love to talk about how they're going to cut red tape, but when in government, they never do. Faced with Labour's 300-page, job-killing, trade union-inspired employment rights bill, the next Conservative government will repeal all of the job-destroying measures in that bill. We'll effectively take a chainsaw to Labour's job-killing bill. It's business that creates jobs, not government. Socialists just don't understand that. The Conservatives do understand business, and that's why we will be taking a chainsaw to so much of Labour's red tape.
Andrew Griffiths MP there with his chainsaw. Yeah, apparently he's not actually using it. Well, I don't know. We maybe have to ask him next time he's on. I wonder if there's any more updates on the situation with the migrants coming into this country and being detained. Shall we ask Yvette Cooper?
Well, we'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Yeah. That was 11 days ago that we were promised a regular updates, and the pilot started and presumably finished. It's like Mastermind pilot. I've started, so I'll finish, because he's not doing anything else. Whoever he is, whatever the pilot scheme is, doesn't seem to be working. A guy came in last Saturday, Saturday before, the TikTok migrant, and he was in a hotel in Heathrow by Sunday. 27,997 migrants have arrived just this year alone, since the beginning of January. Incredible. The migrant tracker, well over 50,000 now. I think it's 51,239, which doesn't include, I think, the weekend figure. And we know at least another 2,500 have come in since the one-in, one-out scheme started. So it's not really going brilliantly, is it? And you can buy a dinghy though for 350 quid. You know, that's one of the only things that hasn't gone up in price. Extraordinary. That great leader and negotiator two-tier Kiev supports the peace deal in Ukraine, says Mick in Wallington, volunteering our brave soldiers as peacekeepers. Putin must be purring. What happens when one of our troops get killed? World War III or more Starmer platitudes? Keep your narcissistic nose out, Starmer. Yeah, well, they'll all be heading over there, won't they, in their droves. Special advisors all over the place. You know, the European leaders all trying to muscle in on the White House Oval Office. There won't be room for them all. It'd be interesting to see how Trump deals with them, won't it? It's 9:51.
Putin has convinced Trump that the main demands of Russia, which is effectively a total capitulation of Ukraine, are the terms in which he wants to end the war. There's going to be a big meeting on Monday in the White House with Zelensky, and I fear, and I'm pretty well assured, that Trump is going to present Putin's demands as the way to end the war. And of course, Zelensky can't accept those demands, and so Trump will then blame Zelensky for the war carrying on.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:54, very nearly. Kevin O'Sullivan will be here very shortly. He's in for Julie Hartley all week. Let's get a voice note from Paul on migrants.
Good morning, Mike. Paul up in Hartlepool. The Labour-run council up here in Hartlepool has put hundreds, I believe a minimum of 500, but we think more because the Freedom of Information requests are so late coming through. They put them all within 1 mile to 2 miles of the town centre so that they've got access to amenities. What it's actually meant is it's not safe to go into town, and you have to be very careful now when you're taking your grandchildren to school to ensure that they arrive there safely. It's a total disaster up here. And the best thing we can do is stop these illegal migrants coming in, or else there's going to be all hell let loose soon. Great show. Have a good week.
Paul, thank you very much indeed, and the same to you. These stories are coming in every day now from all sorts of different parts of the country. Absolutely incredible stuff. Earlier, we spoke to Roxanne Hoge, the chair of the Republican Party in Los Angeles, looking ahead to the Trump-Zelensky meeting at the White House later today.
It's a war is always a terrible thing. And I think what's really interesting is to see American media, and I'm sure you see it there too, not rooting for the end of war suddenly. That's not good.
No, it really isn't. And that's just surprising, isn't it, how many people sort of in the West, most of them anti-Trump, want to see the war continuing. And we've got a lot of politicians in this country who I speak to on a regular basis who say, oh, you know, if we don't stop Putin now, you know, next he'll be coming into Poland, or next he'll be coming into Latvia or Belarus or somewhere. You know, they really genuinely fear that Putin won't stop at Ukraine. But, you know, with Trump in charge, he might just do that.
Well, I saw someone on Twitter, X, had a very good point. All these European leaders and Zelensky, all very interested in Zelensky's border with Russia when they've thrown their doors, as you've been saying, wide open to migrants from all over the world and not maintaining their own sovereignty. So either borders matter or they don't.
Yes, exactly right. And what do the American public make of it? Because obviously we see the reaction of the media, but what about the people of America? What are they saying?
Well, as you know, I live in very deep blue Los Angeles, which is what we call an overwhelmingly progressive area. Yeah. And this weekend, I was asked to comment on a series of protests. And what were the protests about? Well, everything. Basically, they were mad at Trump for enforcing the border, for speaking to Putin, for, I mean, the list was sort of endless. It was just an all-purpose anti-Trump rally.
Right. And so those are not really necessarily representative of America, though, are they? I mean, they might be representative of California and Los Angeles, but that's not the whole of the country.
No, clearly more than half of the country agrees with the man, and that's why he's our president. The real break is often between rural and urban. And so California is the most urban state in the country, the least rural state in the country. Yeah. And when you have that situation, you'll find a lot of people saying, well, of course, he's terrible.
Right. But in terms of the war in Ukraine, I mean, my understanding would be that most Americans would not want to see more money being thrown at Ukraine. They wouldn't want to see necessarily any more help being given to Ukraine. They certainly wouldn't want to see American troops going in anywhere near that direction.
You're right, and speaking about the sane ones, but remember, the people who have now Palestinian flags in their bios, and then last week it was Mexican flags. Only a couple months ago, everyone had a Ukrainian flag in their bio. So, as I said, the goalposts move all the time.
Yeah.
But the people who actually vote and do the work and pay the taxes in America, no, they do not want to see American boots on the ground.
No, exactly right. Roxanne Host, thank you very much indeed. Chair of the Republican Party in Los Angeles there, speaking to us from California. Roxanne Hose there, looking ahead to this afternoon. Of course, we're going to be covering that live from about 5 o'clock in the White House when all of the coalition of the Willies, as I like to call them, are going to be showing up in order to try and sort of push Trump into being nicer to Zelensky than he was the last time he showed up. We shall see. Here's one from Nan in Wales. Listen to your caller, Colin. If this country was invaded, would we give up Wales? I live in Wales, and fingers crossed, yes, the USA invades. Please give it to Wales, or please give us to Wales. Pretty please, says Nan. She'd like to become part of America. There we are. Kevin O'Sullivan's here. Very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike. All right.
In for Julia Hartley-Brewer for the week.
Indeed.
Very nice. You don't get to lie in anymore. You
No,
have to get
exactly.
up
I was up at 6 o'clock this morning, so
Really?
quite a shock.
Crikey. That's
Quite
a bit early.
shock. Well, at least I got to listen to the early stages of your show. I
Very
usually
good.
listen to the later
Indeed.
stages.
So what's coming up?
Well, we've got to keep an eye on Washington, haven't
Yeah.
we? I mean,